Good evening. Before we start our city council session tonight, I'd like the city attorney to provide the closed session disclosure.
Thank you very much. Good evening. The council met in closed session with legal counsel tonight to discuss one case of anticipated litigation. During closed session, council received a report and provided direction to staff. There is no reportable action, and let the record reflect that the meeting was adjourned at 5:45 p.m. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We'll call the meeting to order. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start our roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Here.
Councilmember Alvord. Councilmember Mendoza.
Here.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Here.
And Mayor Haldeshell.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask Catherine Kitchell to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in renewing our pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'm going to request the city clerk announce the meeting procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 1st City of Roseville regular city council meeting. Agendas are available at the end of the staff table to your right or online on the city's website. All comments from the public should be directed to the city council and not to any member of the public or the audience or any staff member as well. All speakers must speak at the podium as this meeting is being recorded. For comments on non-agendized items, members of the public may address the city council regarding any item that is not listed on the agenda and within the subject matter jurisdiction of our city council. Public comments on non-agenda items will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The collective initial period for public comment is limited to 25 minutes in this first segment. Any speaker that did not have the opportunity to speak during the first segment due to time limitations will have a second opportunity at the end of the meeting prior to city council comments. The Brown Act does prohibit our city council from taking action, debating, or discussing items that are not listed on tonight's agenda. For items that are listed, speakers will have 5 minutes to provide input that should be relevant to the item that's listed and appearing on the agenda. And again, the time will be monitored, and once the red light begins to blink at the podium, we request that the speaker please conclude their comments. Lastly, if addressing the city council tonight, please consider stating your name for the record. With that, thank you for your civic participation, and welcome to the city of Roseville.
Great, thank you very much. We'll start this evening with presentations, and the first one is 5.1 Proclamation for Small Business Month, May 2024. Melissa, would you come and I'm going to ask Vice Mayor Bernasconi, Councilmember Mendoza, and Councilmember Alvord, who are small business folks, to join you at the podium, or do you want to do it from here?
I thought I would start off with Melissa there and maybe finish up and have, yeah, it might be just easier.
That'd be
for us
great.
to-
Thank you.
Proclamation for Small Business Month, May of 2024, and my colleagues will start off with it.
Do you have the folder?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are we proclaiming right now? Whereas, since 2019, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce annually declares May as the National Small Business Month, recognizing the critical contributions of America's entrepreneurs and small business owners. And whereas, Roseville recognizes the many contributions small business owners bring to our local economy and adds value to the quality of life of our residents while attracting people to our area, increasing and supporting growth. And whereas, there are more than 33.3 million small businesses in the U.S., and more than half of Americans either work or work for a small business. And small businesses create about 2/3 of new jobs in the United States each year. And
whereas Roseville small business owners have a passion for what they do, when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas Roseville's economic development strategy includes goals to support partnerships, entrepreneurship, and small businesses by building a supportive ecosystem that creates reliable pathways for entrepreneurs to confidently start and grow successful businesses. And whereas the U.S. Chamber of Commerce's goal is to help small businesses and startup owners begin and succeed in their businesses.
And whereas in recognition of the hard work, ingenuity, and dedication of small businesses and their contribution to the economy, the Roseville Chamber of Commerce and the City of Roseville Economic Development Department join in this national effort to celebrate small businesses. So on behalf of the City Council of the City of Roseville, we proclaim May 2024 as National Small Business Month. Encourage support of this national effort so Roseville small businesses can do what they do best: grow their businesses, create jobs, and ensure that our communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. And we have our Economic Development Director, Melissa Anguiano, here. Thank you.
Thank you. We're grateful to recognize our small business community, not only this month, but throughout the entire year. Our small business community makes up about 85% of our business community. We know they're a vital component to a viable and strong local economy, so we appreciate the recognition. And if you're out and about in the community over the next month, make sure you give those small businesses some extra love.
Great, and not only are, is Roseville known for its business-friendly attitude, but these three council members, in addition to being here, also run their own small businesses. So we very much, they know firsthand the importance of small businesses in the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councilwoman Rakucci to join me at the podium with Katrina Six.
This is our opportunity to recognize our public employees. So in honor of millions of public employees at the federal, state, county, and city levels, whereas Americans are served every day by public servants at the federal, state, and county and city levels, and these unsung heroes do the work that keep our nation functioning. And public employees take oaths to perform their jobs. Many public servants, including police officers, firefighters, military personnel, border patrol officers, embassy employees, healthcare professionals, risk their lives each day in service to the people of the United States and around the world. And
whereas public servants include utility workers, inspectors, engineers, teachers, scientists, social workers, safety inspectors, dispatchers, laborers, parks, recreation and library workers, computer technicians, and countless other occupations. And day in and day out, they provide the diverse services demanded by the American people of their government with efficiency, integrity, and dedication. And whereas these public servants at every level, without these public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials. I now, therefore, Bruce Howdeshelt, Mayor, on behalf of all of the council, do hereby proclaim May 5th through the 11th, 2024 as Public Service Recognition Week and encourage all citizens to recognize and appreciate the accomplishments and contributions of government employees at all levels. And you've been designated to receive this on behalf of, what do we have, 1,323 public service? Anyway. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approximately.
Thank you guys so much. I'll wait till you guys sit down. I always feel weird starting before you've sat. Good evening, Mayor Howdeshelt and council members. My name is Katrina Six, and I work in the City Clerk Department. I am here as the chair of the Employee Recognition Committee to accept this Public Recognition Service Proclamation. I want to start by thanking council on behalf of the more than, thank you Bruce, 1,320-something of us, wonderful full-time and part-time city staff. We work tirelessly around the clock, all hours, different departments, and we greatly appreciate this recognition. It means a lot to our staff to work in public service. We love giving back to our community, positively affecting the lives of those around us, and helping the city thrive. We thank you for allowing the Employee Recognition Committee to dedicate the time to showing our employees just how much the city cares about them. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll next move on to public comments and announce that public comments are only for these items not listed on the agenda. We have a number of speaker cards. Giovanni Odolini, I have as the first speaker.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Giovanni Ottolini. I've been an area carpenter since 1997. I'm also a field rep for Carpenters Local 46, and I represent more than 3,000 hardworking men and women in Sacramento, Placer, and El Dorado County. I'm here tonight because my brothers and sisters have been having to drive farther and farther to find work that pays a livable wage with health benefits for them and their families. This is extremely frustrating because there's an abundance of development projects being entitled in Roseville with no labor standards. It's unacceptable to me that the developers are continually coming into our communities and exploiting workers by paying them substandard wages with no access to health care. Then they have the audacity to use terms such as sustainable, community, and affordable when describing their projects. Yet they never mention the blue-collar families that will bring these projects to life and whether they will hire members from the community or if the benefits offered are sustainable for them and their families, or whether wages paid make housing affordable. I'm here to ask the council to please consider adopting labor standards that any future proposed developments pay area standard carpenter wages, healthcare coverage, and a commitment to hire local carpenters, including apprentices and graduates of the Capital College Career Academy. Myself and tens of thousands of my brothers and sisters have benefited from state-approved apprenticeship programs, and our quality of life is better because of it. Apprenticeship programs give those without the opportunity to attend college the ability to acquire skills that lead to good-paying jobs and a shot at the American dream, regardless of where you come from or what you look like. With your leadership and direction, we can send a message to developers and contractors that Roseville and Placer County will no longer tolerate the exploitation of carpenters, skilled tradespeople, and apprentices so that they can maximize their profits on the backs of hardworking blue-collar families trying to survive in one of the most expensive states in the nation. Adopting labor standards will level the playing field for responsible developers and contractors and eliminate the advantage that the rapacious developers and contractors have. The result of these labor standards will greatly benefit the blue-collar families of Roseville and Placer County and produce a high-quality product for the end user. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next speaker's card, I have Lucy Pittman. Lucy Pittman.
Good evening. My name is Lucy Pittman. I'm a senior at my high school, and I can attest to talking about the THC beverages that you can now buy at BevMo. They are highly intoxicating, something about 1,200 milligrams per can that just by looking at a simple label you can see. It's extremely dangerous for anyone, adult or teenager, any age. I agree that if cannabis is legal, then at least Roseville should do is have a licensed retailer where there are strict controls and oversight. Roseville has always been a proud environment for its residents. I think Roseville should take immediate action for looking into this issue and exploring legal and regulated means for cannabis. I think overall that this matter is very important to me because I've unfortunately and personally seen the toll that it's taken on a lot of my classmates, my coworkers, and my family. And I think that the sooner that action is taken, the more that we can prevent and cause change. So, thank you.
Comments? Next up is Riley Shea.
Hi, my name is Riley Shea. I live in Roseville and I attend Granite Bay High School. I don't know if you know it or not, but I'm going off of what Lucy also said. Vaping is a real issue in our schools. My school has even started an anti-vaping club. Vaping is occurring everywhere and it's really easy to buy. There are so many smoke shops in Roseville. What you might also not know is how easy it is to get THC products in Roseville in any of the smoke shops, but also in the large beverage retailers like BevMo and Wines Plus. I even have a picture of an Instagram post right here in Roseville where they're touting their THC beverages. Roseville should do something about this. It's a real problem for kids my age, and if Roseville wants to sell cannabis, it should do so with its own retailer. At least that way Roseville would have some oversight and tighter controls where no one under 21 can buy it. And who knows, maybe you can even get them to pay for enforcement or education. Thank you.
Thank you, Riley. Next, I have George Knowlton.
Good evening. My name is George Knowlton. I'm here representing Smile Company. Thank you all for your service that you do for us. I'm here to simply ask for ordinance for an RV park. I'm purchasing the land from Riverside Avenue to Vernon, and we have a beautiful RV park plan there with the bike path going through, and we have a lot of support through the community. So I'm here asking the City Council to please create an ordinance for me so that I can get this done. And also, to boot, I mean, one extra add-on would be great if we could just lift the flood zone that is no longer a flood zone. We have been monitoring it for the last 4 years, and since Union Pacific put in the new trellis, it has never flooded and not even came close. So we would like to partner with the City of Roseville and get the bike path through that land, and we would like to bring in a very vibrant, high-end RV park. We'll be in the top 5% of RV parks in the nation. It'll be a great thing for Roseville, create a big tax base. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Those are all the speaker cards, but if there's anyone else who wanted to speak on a non-agenda item, going once, going twice, all right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our consent calendar, and I'll ask the clerk to announce the procedures for approving the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So all matters on consent are considered routine in nature and will be approved by one motion of the City Council. There will be no discussion on consent calendar items unless a City Council member, staff, or a member of the public requests that an item be pulled for further discussion tonight. At this time, neither council or staff has made such a request. Is there any member of the public that would like to pull an item for further discussion? Okay, Mr. Mayor, seeing none, we do have before the City Council tonight, the council will consider approving consent calendar items 7.1 to 7.32. May I please have a motion to approve all items?
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvord.
Yes.
Councilor Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haldeshell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, we'll now move to our section on ordinances, and the first one is the Roseville Municipal Code Amendment, regulations for fireworks. And Assistant City Attorney Joe Speaker, are you going to make the presentation this evening?
Sir.
Joined by?
I am joined by Robert Carrer, Program Manager for the Public Affairs and Communications Department.
Make the presentation.
So we're before you this evening regarding an amendment to the Roseville Municipal Code, specifically related to regulation of fireworks. First slide, please. Thank you so much. So tonight we're before you for a first reading of an ordinance amending section 1616.14 of the Roseville Municipal Code regarding regulation of fireworks. We are also asking for a request to adopt a resolution establishing a new administrative fine schedule to reflect the new proposed penalty amounts for the firework regulation under this new ordinance. And we will also be providing a report on a proposed communication plan for educating the public on the regulations for fireworks in the city of Roseville based on this new ordinance amendment. So by way of background, as you'll recall, at the August 2nd, 2023 City Council meeting, the City Council asked staff to look at options for increasing enforcement of illegal fireworks in the city of Roseville. The request came in response to the City Council receiving inquiries from the public related to enforcement of illegal fireworks in the city of Roseville after the 4th of July holiday. And that was specifically related to illegal fireworks, not safe and sane fireworks, which are legal in the city of Roseville. And at that time, the City Council made clear it was not interested in the total ban, but rather wanted to focus only on the increased enforcement of those illegal fireworks. Staff returned to the City Council at the January 17th, 2024 City Council meeting and presented information related to firework enforcement around the region, some recent changes in state law, and options for the City Council to consider. Council gave direction, and staff took that requested change and has returned tonight with a proposed ordinance that incorporates the prior direction. Specifically, the ordinance before you this evening increases the administrative fines, which are currently $100, $200, and $500 respectively for first, second, and third offense, and increases those to $750 for a first offense and then $1,000 for every offense thereafter. And to be clear, each separate firework would be a separate offense. So that's $750 the first and $1,000 for each firework, illegal firework. It removes the language in the Roseville Municipal Code that caps a violation at an infraction when a person possesses 25 pounds or less, and instead allows a violation to be cited as a misdemeanor, which is consistent with state law. It allows for law enforcement and emergency responders to charge a person the actual cost for responding to a call for an illegal firework, in addition to the fine amounts that I just discussed. And those costs, depending on the needed response, could range from a few $100s to several $1,000s, obviously depending on the nature of that response. The other thing the ordinance does is it implements a knowing host ban that punishes a property owner who knowingly allows illegal firework use and storage on their property. So the proposed ordinance amendment also makes all of these changes, but it also clarifies some language that's created ambiguity in the past to ensure an easier enforcement of its provisions. And additionally, as I stated earlier, staff is here this evening and has prepared a new administrative fine schedule to reflect the changes in those administrative fines, increasing to $750 for the first offense and then $1,000 thereafter, and that's based on a calendar year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rob to give you some information regarding the community outreach.
Thank you, Joe. As mentioned, if adopted, our goal would be to educate and inform the Roseville community about the amended fireworks regulation. This effort is crucial for enhancing compliance and ensuring public safety. Our target audience will be our focused outreach areas, groups including residents, property owners, landlords, local business owners, community organizations, nonprofits, and visitors and tourists of Roseville. We'll have a few outreach methods that are consistent with what we normally do during 4th of July, but of course will be enhanced with a potential update. Our educational materials will be distributing brochures, flyers, and direct mailing that detail the regulation and changes, just providing essential safety tips. The direct mail campaign will go to every household in Roseville to ensure everyone is communicated this change. Extensive digital campaign that will be launched, including the use of the regional hashtag Keep It Safe, Keep It Legal, and updates to the city's website to provide accessible, user-friendly information available all the time. We do plan to coordinate with local media for coverage, interviews, and discussions on the new regulation. Extensive partnerships with local businesses, nonprofit groups, ensuring that the outreach hits every corner of our community. We'll work on strategic placement information signs around the city using our changeable message boards along major roadways just to alert and inform the public of the change. And as always, staff would be available for public meetings just to host informational sessions and workshops focusing on safe handling of fireworks and understanding the new regulations. The enhanced outreach will carry with it 3 key messages: awareness of the change. Obviously, we need to communicate the increased fines, stricter classifications for violations, ultimately to deter the illegal firework usage. As always, we'll focus on safety first, continuously promoting the use of safe and sane fireworks, and of course, promoting the stricter adherence to the local regulations. And responsibility, as mentioned by Joe, is crucial to emphasize the responsibility of property owners and hosts in preventing illegal fireworks activities. Our timeline for launching would be in May, targeting 1 month prior to the commencement of fireworks sales. This timing would ensure that our community is well informed, well in advance of the sale period, which runs June 28th to July 4th. With that, I'll pass it back to Joe for any closing thoughts.
Nothing else other than to make ourselves available for any questions that the council might have regarding the ordinance or any of the proposed communication strategy.
Yeah, before I open it up to council for questions, I want to ask our city attorney something that just dawned on me. This is focused on illegal fireworks. Some of us volunteer in neighborhood association booths or other philanthropic on the Safe and Sane. Is there any conflict of interest for those of us who do that?
No. there
Okay,
isn't.
I just wanted to make sure, right? Because some of us work through Arcona, work through Lions, Kiwanis, whatever the case may be, and, dedicate some hours to that. So just wanted to make sure there wasn't I didn't see it, and I just wanted to make sure through your legal lens, you didn't see it either. So, okay,
No, I don't.
I'll open it up to questions.
I had a question. I see you had a listing of people who were shooting off illegal fireworks and the fees, 1, 2nd, 3rd time. How about the host? How much did they?
Same fine. So it would be $750 for, they would be responsible for those illegal fireworks on their property. So that same calculation based on the firework, it would apply to the host or would apply to the person lighting the firework. And the reason for that is kind of a twofold approach. We may not be able to actually see the person lighting it, which is why the host is an easier person who, if they're allowing that activity on their property. But it would still be tied to the number of fireworks that are lit off.
Okay. So I wasn't-
Or I shouldn't say lit off, but that are found.
Found,
Yeah.
okay. And let's see, there was another question. You were talking about your campaign to explain to the community, and was a lot of basis was that it was not a safe and sane, and it's also the new fines. How about the fact of mortalities and injuries, hands, decapitated, head, body parts missing because of this? What are you doing in that fact to say that, it really is very harmful, you could hurt somebody or burn somebody's house down?
I think the specific messaging is usually targeted at the specific audience. And for example, we would generally keep it, GPG if we're talking to, school kids. But on social media campaigns, we would obviously make sure that they're appropriate for general resident view. But your point is absolutely correct. The injuries that come along with illegal fireworks usage is absolutely something we have touched on before and would continue to message as appropriate.
Yeah, as appropriate, even if it's the kids. I mean, if you just say, hey, you can get hurt, a lot more than using the safe and sane.
Vice Mayor Bernasconi?
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
Rob-
Real.
No, I'm done.
Okay, Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Rob, you talked about the proactive messaging. What about for residents on the reactive side? So I know one of the problems has been clogging up lines, 911 calls the night of, but will part of your messaging be what residents can do? Can they use my Roseville app, just a different avenue so that they can report what they see? Because I think that's an enforcement part of this, is there's that peer pressure, right? If your neighbor knows that it's very easy to be reported, they might less likely engage in that illegal activity.
I think where we are at tonight is the update to the regulation. Next phase, if adopted, would be the strategy side. And I think that would fall in the strategy side, working together with citywide and our partners within police and fire to figure out exactly what that looks like.
Okay.
And to add to that, based on the changes being proposed tonight to the ordinance, it would allow for enforcement through our administrative fine process, since now the fines are higher. And that process is a different process than, say, the criminal process. And it simply requires that we have a reasonable belief that the violation occurred. So there is that ability for evidence to be submitted on a basis that is easier for us from the enforcement side and from the staff side to process. And again, we still have to work through what that looks like once we have an understanding of what it is. But the design of the ordinance changes is to make that administrative enforcement easier and allow for that ability for even citizen input to help with that process.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, Councilman Halvard?
Do you recall when we brought this up last fall, there was a number that I wish I had in front of me, but the number of fires that we had, and then how many of those were brush fires, because it was significant in that short amount of time around the 4th.
Remember that number, and I apologize for not having that with me. I'm sure someone from fire would correct, but you're right. There was absolutely a cluster around that time period, including obviously on the actual 4th of July, the actual day itself, obviously out on the west side of town.
Thank you. I'll have comments after.
Councilman?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, picking up on that, so Sacramento County recently, within the last month, saying we're still in April, adopted significantly higher fines. $1,000 for the first offense, $2,500 for a second offense that happens within a year, $5,000 for an additional offense. And I think this is what's relevant because we all remember the fire, the scary fire that happened in an open space area. $10,000 if it happens in the American River Parkway. Why aren't our fines higher?
So there's a couple different reasons, and the first and foremost, the main one is based on the current verbiage in our city charter. We are capped at a certain amount for administrative fines, and that would be $1,000. So $1,000.
How do we change that?
So that could be a charter amendment. There could also be, and I want to make this clear that when I talk about that $1,000 fine, I'm referring to our administrative fine. We still have the ability, and the city attorney's office has a city prosecutor and the ability to prosecute these under state law. And that carries fines even greater than the $10,000 range. So I wanted to just make that clear that there is still the ability, even under the changes here, to have fines in that amount, but those would be through the criminal process, which we're equipped to handle. But the idea from the enforcement standpoint with making it in the administrative world was to make it the highest fine amount that we can under our municipal code and use that as a avenue as we pursue that enforcement under this new framework.
I mean, would it be reasonable to think that folks in Sacramento County, which are right on our borders, might come over here? And
Yeah, I can understand that sentiment, but I also think that, again, we're focusing on per firework, so it's not very difficult to get up to a $10,000 fine pretty quickly.
What do you do with somebody who's not somebody here, right?
I mean, they're still subject to the fine. So if we catch somebody the night of, or they're at a friend's house here, they would still be subject to that. We find people who aren't Roseville residents all the time for violations of our municipal code.
Which leads me to my next question, and I tried to understand this through, so this knowingly, the host ordinance, knowingly someone is there? But it does feel like a lot of the code enforcement things where neighbors versus neighbors, help me understand how you determine if there's 35 people there, that the host knows all 35 people and what they brought to the party.
That's a great question. And so our municipal code, this particular amendment, was modeled also after our existing, we have a social host ordinance pertaining to parties for minors. And so it's a code that we've had for a while on our books, and it's one we can utilize if, say, there's a house party and there's underage drinking going on, and we've had situations in town where the parents are home, and the parents are sitting in the backyard or they're upstairs. And then what they used to say before the social host ordinance that we passed was, I didn't know it was happening. And so one of the things we did in that ordinance for the social host, and we used a similar language for this knowing host, is we say knowing or reasonably should have known, considering a totality of the circumstances. And so it does become a factual issue, but if you're sitting upstairs and people are lighting off fireworks in your front yard, it's going to be difficult to show based on that totality that you didn't know or reasonably should have known that that activity was occurring. I think any of us can hear a firework from next door go off in a backyard and know what's happening next door. And so we utilize that standard, which isn't we have to prove they actually knew, it's whether they knew or reasonably should have known, given that totality of the circumstances. And at least in that social host for the minors consuming alcohol world, that hasn't been an issue with regard to a burden of proof in a standard. So we believe that that'll carry true for this ordinance as well.
And then the appeal of any of this comes to our appeals board or goes through the court system?
So if it's fined under our administrative process with those fine amounts we're talking about, it would be handled through our Board of Appeals process. If we had a particularly egregious situation or a situation where we wanted to pursue the criminal route, we could utilize the city attorney prosecutor to do that, in which case we would go through the court for that. But the objective would be, especially as we're learning to use this ordinance, which we recognize will take time to learn to use effectively and to make sure the community knows it, we intend to utilize heavily the administrative process for the majority of the violations.
Right, I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions for it? Open it to the public. We have 4 folks, and I would encourage you to not repeat comments that are made before. Well, let's start off with Deacon Marcia Hanson.
Thank you and good evening, council members. I'm the Reverend Marcia Hanson, deacon at St. John's Episcopal Church out in West Roseville. I'm speaking in support of the Safe and Sane fireworks. This has been a significant source of fundraising revenue from St. John's Episcopal, over $100,000 in the 4 years that we have had a booth through the lottery. That allows us to support a multitude of ministries to serve those suffering in our communities. We very much appreciate and thank the fire department and the city council for allowing these state-approved fireworks of legal and safe and sane fireworks to continue, not only for our church's fundraising, but for the myriad groups that also rely on safe and sane fireworks to serve their needs, especially in these times of fewer and fewer donation sources. I also appreciate the efforts of the City Council for directing their actions today towards those who abuse fireworks by buying the illegal and unsafe fireworks that shoot into the sky. Residents, especially of mobile and modular home communities where I also live, and we have 310 units, these illegal fireworks give us great fear. Such fireworks ending up on any one of our roofs, then an entire community could go up very quickly, because our type of home construction is more of kindling. We're not brick and mortar like the apartments and houses that surround our parks. We are surrounded not only during the 4th of July, but other times of the year too by those shooting those sky-aimed illegal fireworks. We thank you for placing your focus today and punishing those that use the illegal, and especially those that shoot up into the sky. Thank you.
Very much. Next is David Collins.
Good evening. My name is David Collins, and I'm the lead pastor of Roseville Baptist Church. And I'd like to thank the City Council and the Roseville Fire Department for their hard work in keeping our city safe through the use and sale of safe and sane fireworks. The funds generated from this 1 week of sales allow us to provide scholarships for free camps all year long to dozens of low-income residents of Roseville, as well as many other activities and events for children and teenagers to develop and grow into stable and productive citizens of our city. So thank you again for your time and support in celebrating our freedom in the United States in a fun and safe way.
Thank you very much. Next is Dennis Roseville.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. It's my pleasure and honor to be here before you this evening on behalf of TNT Fireworks, and to thank you for entertaining and adopting these proposed ordinance amendments and new fine schedule. We enthusiastically support both, and I would hasten to say that in the short time that this agenda and these staff report has been posted, there are a host of cities throughout this state who have taken great interest in it and are following Roseville's process here tonight because they would like to replicate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Rubik.
Good evening. My children have attended schools in Roseville for quite a while now. I only have one left who's still in school here, but I have worked with local safe and sane fireworks now going on more than 10 years, maybe 12 years now, different. So I do want to thank the city council, mayor, and also our local fire departments, because the support they provide during that time to make sure that our booths are safe as well is very important. And also just to help cut down on the issues and confusion where some people might think that it's the safe and sane fireworks that are the bigger issue. I know for us, our school benefits greatly. There's a lot of extracurriculars that wouldn't happen without it. And we greatly appreciate the opportunity. Our school just got the booth through the city lottery. We've done it for 2 seasons now for our school, but I've done many booths over the years, and it's a great benefit to a lot of local youth sports. Lions Club, Kiwanis, likewise. So just wanted to thank you for your support on this. Thank you.
Which school is that?
John Adams Academy.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are all the speaker cards, but anyone else like to speak on this item before we close public comment and bring it back to the council? Seeing none, bring it back to the council. Councilwoman Rakucci, any other questions or comments?
Just a real quick one. For safe fireworks, you have so many days before 4th of July. Is that when they sell them?
Yes. So June 28th to July 4th is what our ordinance says. So it, and that actually comes out of state law. There's a time period where the safe and sane are allowed to be sold. And we follow suit with other jurisdictions in the area with keeping that same window.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Councilmember Mendoza?
I just want to pick up on the mayor's question from a little bit ago. And Rob, you had mentioned when Vice Mayor Bernasconi had asked her original question that we were in this phase, and the next one would be the strategy phase of this. But specific to the fines, I do agree. Obviously, increase would be a deterrent. But that would require us amending the charter according to our city attorney. So I don't know if we'd be able to do that for this, since we're already down the road, and what we're seeing tonight is, we don't want to undo all of this. But in the future, if we wanted to increase that fine, say for the next season or season after that or whatever, what would that require, and how difficult would it be to pair that up with what we already have?
So currently, as the charter is worded, we would require a charter amendment to change the way we define the types of fines we charge, which would then potentially allow for that increased cap. So that process isn't, I'll be candid, isn't easy for the, if you want to increase beyond the $1,000 per the fine, but there is a process to do that. From our perspective, this is the first year we'd be implementing these new fines, and considering that last year it was $100 for a first offense, and now you're elevating that to $750 for first and then $1,000 after, we believe that there's value in seeing how this plays out and seeing that deterrent play out and seeing how those tools work, knowing that there is that ability to change, but let the facts and the guide us towards that outcome as we kind of see as we build this out.
Yeah. And that's why I said in the future, knowing that I want to see how this works this year and maybe give it an additional year. But, as we draw closer, that would, a year or two from now would be, 26. So, we're getting closer and closer to that 2030 date where the charter would be up for review anyway. So I was just wondering, is it worth it, to do that prior to just when the charter is, being reviewed at that point? Do we make those changes? Or if we didn't see, because right now we're fining in for compliance, right? So if we didn't see that, to your point, it would not be an easy process, but it's a possibility if we needed to.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Albert?
On the 4th of July, my wife and I went out to Westbrook, not far out of our neighborhood, and we rode our bikes over there because we knew there was a fire going on. You could see it in the sky. And we stood out there with dozens of fearful and very angry residents and watched the field burn. There were residents that had backyards that came up to the field, and they were out hosing, trying to protect their fence line. And it took a while for the fire trucks to arrive. In fact, they weren't even ours that came initially. We had Roseville Fire and I think Cal Fire. There was a yellow truck out there. And because they were so busy putting out other fires in the city. And so that was eye-opening. And watching them battle that and the and I'm sure the rest of the council got the same notification, but man, people were upset, calling, private messages, emailing. There was a lot of anger about wanting to do something because it's been getting worse and worse every year. And out in West Roseville, we have a couple Disneyland firework displays that go off in the middle of the neighborhoods. And I know those are kind of fun, but they're causing havoc, and people are mad about it. So I'm excited about this. I think we need to do something. We need to set some examples and get people to just tone it down and be responsible, because they're damaging our community, and this is what our community wants. So I'm very supportive of this. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Bernstein, okay. A number of questions have come up. This outreach, how is that being paid for? The outreach that you will be doing to the community?
Certainly. Excellent question. Obviously, there's existing outreach that's planned every 4th of July. That's covered within each of the departments. A lot of it will be free, digital, billboards, social media, news media, so on and so forth, that is already planned. But the largest element would be the direct mail, and we would work through financing to find options to be able to cover that expense.
Right. And we've had requests from the community for other time periods and other celebrations. Do we have to have another ordinance? Because this is very limited to June 28th to July 4th. So how, when the Punjabi community wants to have a celebration, right? Do we accommodate in this ordinance?
We do accommodate in this ordinance.
How do
There's
we
the
do
ability to
that?
obtain a permit to do that outside of the window, right? So you're able to obtain the permit, use a licensed pyrotechnic operator, and you can do it outside of that. It's the same thing that we go through to do fireworks for the tree lighting in the town square. So there is a process outside of that window, of that 28th of June to July 4th for that use. That is the window for the sale of safe and sane fireworks and the use of safe and sane. Outside of that window, it's illegal absent obtaining the permit.
Yeah.
So we do allow for that. And like I said, if there was, like I said, if there was some desire to have another window, there would need to be an ordinance amendment for that. But I don't think it's required or necessary, given the fact that there is the permit process to do that outside the normal window.
Councilman Abbott, I share your concern. Look, I think I'm going to speak for my four-legged friend at home who shudders every 4th of July. I'm going to speak for my father-in-law who's a veteran, and all the veterans in the community who shudder, but who suffer from PTSD, post-traumatic stress. Yes, but this ordinance isn't going to accomplish it. This ordinance, I think we need a charter amendment. And, we're limited, if I understand, we are limited by the amount of increase we can do from the 100 to 750? Do I understand that
We're limited in
correctly?
the maximum amount. So the $1,000 is the maximum amount. So that's the part that limits us, is the cap.
Yeah. And this is about illegal fireworks. This is the safe and sane community and the fireworks community that work within the constraints are not the issue there. And I'm really worried about this host aspect of it, because I think it's fraught with a lot of what we see in other code enforcement things, where neighbors may take advantage of it. Let's just put it that way. So I would prefer that we not adopt this ordinance. I won't vote for this. I will support the concept, but we need a charter amendment. We need stronger, because, what burned out on the west side was open space. The bike trails burn. That's the beauty of this city. That's where people recreate. And if those are scarred, then people don't seek those places. And so, I wish we would go back and do something stronger, because I think it's not a deterrent for those outside the community that want to come here and I'm looking for the opposite of beautification, but, scar our community. So, all right.
Mayor, would this deter us from also doing a charter amendment later, doing this now in the meantime until we get to a charter?
I would love a charter amendment, so if the council wants to direct staff to prepare a charter amendment, I think that's appropriate.
There's no time for a charter amendment.
Yeah, just to be clear,
it'll kicked to next year. We can't get the language to the county in a ballot, get it on the measure. I'd love to deliver that, but I don't want to.
We can get a charter
Commit
amendment on the
something we can't.
November ballot, correct?
We don't have enough time.
No.
I think this is a good start. We got to start someplace, this is good.
This won't
Charter
preclude
Review
us from,
Committee, but-
this won't
In the
preclude us
future,
from
yeah.
doing one in the future, right?
Yeah, no.
Not at all.
Because that was my original question to Joe. Next year,
If
or even
we-
after the 4th this year, if we wanted to get language and start that process, this would just be, it would be added on to this, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, the timeline for submitting a charter amendment and the ballot arguments, we still are in that window, and we could still make the November. You could bring something back in June, and we could still make November.
The county has a very early date that we have to submit everything to it.
She said no.
Okay.
July.
You know,
July 1st.
I still think I don't think this is a strong enough deterrent. That's all I'm going to say. All right, you're asked for a recommendation and a motion?
Are you asking for the motion?
Yeah, we're ready.
Thank you. Thank you. On item 8.1, the City Council will consider introducing for first reading an ordinance of the Council of the City of Roseville amending Section 16.16.40 of Chapter 16.16 of Title 16 of the Roseville Municipal Code regarding regulations for fireworks and adopting Resolution Number 24-114, approving a fine schedule for administrative enforcement of municipal code violations, and repealing Resolution Number 15-491. With that, Mr. Mayor, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvord.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haldeshell.
Abstain.
So,
Motion
Mayor,
passes 4-1.
under our meeting procedures, you have to give a reason for abstaining.
I think I stated my reasons. This is not a strong enough deterrent to keep folks from adjacent counties, adjacent jurisdictions, from scarring our community with illegal fireworks, not the safe and safe. So,
And just let the record reflect that counts as a non-vote.
Thank you.
I will move to special request reports and presentations. 9.1, Council Discretionary Funds, Placer Justice Foundation.
So, thank you.
Our city clerk is going to make this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a council discretionary request. So the Placer Justice Foundation hosts an event for survivors and victims. They host a brunch, and they've made a request that the city council consider making a donation and contribution to their foundation. They did not specify an amount.
Is there anyone here?
I don't think we have anyone here tonight, but this was made at the request of one of our council members.
Yeah, I had requested it. They sent this, I don't know if it was just to me or if I would imagine that we all received it. I know that the luncheon already took place. I think that they sent this to us at the beginning of April, and so I don't believe there was time for us to get it on the agenda. They do have amounts for their event. I think that the cause is very worthwhile, and the work that they do in our city is something that I value. They have, of any amount, their sponsor amounts went from $500 to $2,500. I would be comfortable with $1,000 or $1,500, knowing that would go right to the organization at this point and not necessarily to put it on the event.
Any questions from council?
Are we able to, if we did 1,500, are we able to be a sponsor for the next event, since the event already happened? Do we know if they would allow that?
I can follow up on that.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is something that they host annually, or if this is their first time doing it.
It looks like on the foundation partner
Don't
sponsor
say.
at the 1,500, yeah, we'd be entitled to.
You know, I think regardless, it would be great if they would count us in for next year since we missed the window, but regardless, I think it's
And they've done it before?
I don't know if they have
Is this the
done it
first?
before.
I read the backup material. I believe it was the first one.
First, I thought it was first, yeah.
Any other questions? How much is in our Citizens Benefit Fund?
We currently have something like 11,300 and something. It's on our report.
That's for our council's portion of it.
Yes, discretionary funds.
Discretionary fund, And
Yes.
then it rolls over rolls over July 1st?
Correct.
Right, okay, great. And so the request is for 1,500?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with 1,500.
I'm comfortable with that as well.
Okay.
That would be
Be
sure
fine
to
with
take
me.
public comment.
Yep.
I should open for public comment.
Yep.
Seeing no public comment, close public comment, and unless the council has any other questions or comments, I'll ask the clerk to read the motion.
Thank you. On item 9.1, the city council will consider approving the request for a donation in the amount of $1,500 from council discretionary fund for the Placer Justice Foundation for the Victim and Survivor Brunch. May I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Albert. Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Hildeshelp.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes unanimously.
Our next presentation is from Local Sales Tax Citizen Oversight Committee, and it's a annual report to the council. Scott, are you going to make the presentation, or are we going to hear from the Citizens Benefit Fund? We'll hear from the Citizens Benefit Fund, so if you'll introduce yourself for the record.
Hi. My name is Catherine Kitchell, and this is Jordan Bonnell, and we are two members of the Local Sales Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. It's a long title. In 2018, as you may recall, I should say thank you for having us, Mayor and Council, by the way. In 2018, Measure B was approved by the Roseville voters. The measure increased the sales tax from 7.25% to 7.75%, and it also called for the establishment of our committee. Our committee is an oversight committee only and does not make budget decisions or budget recommendations. We review the general fund budgets and expenditures as extra eyes to report to you if the Measure B funds are being spent as intended by the adopted measure. For fiscal year 22-23, the city collected $28.8 million in Measure B funds. Those revenues are a general tax, which is pooled with other general fund revenues. As a consequence, we can't trace the revenue directly to an expenditure. We can review a variety of financial documents provided by the Finance Department, including the budget, the independent audit, the general ledger detail, and reserve policies, as well as the Measure B scorecard, which is attached to the council communication. The scorecard was developed specifically to assist us with our duties. Our conclusion is that for fiscal year 22-23, Measure B revenues were used for their intended purpose, to maintain or increase police, fire, public works, and parks, recreation, and library services, and contribute to the reserve funds. We have two suggestions with the report. For 22-23, the general fund had a $14.3 million surplus. Council, at the time our report was done, had not yet determined how those funds were to be used. And second, the results of the National Community Survey, a biannual citywide effort which gathers information about community satisfaction with city services, was not available at the time of our report. Our suggestion is that those two things be included in next year's report. It's just a matter of timing, just to make sure that the community is in fact satisfied with the services, I think is a pretty important feature of the Measure B measure. And now, Jordan, do you have anything to add?
We would just like to thank the city staff and finance attorney in helping us with developing this report and reviewing it.
And we're here for any questions you may have.
Right, council, questions? No?
Thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you for being
We
here.
appreciate it. We'll open it for public comment. Close public comment, bring it back to the council, and this is for information only. And I want to join my colleagues in saying, appreciate, your expertise and your diligence. to reviewing this, and you're an important safeguard of these funds to our community. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you.
We're going to enter some more presentations, and first up is the Capital Improvement Project Proposed Budget Preview for fiscal year 24-25. Our Public Works Director, Jason Tchaikovsky, is with us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Haldeschelt. As you said, my name is Jason Tchaikovsky. I'm your Public Works Director. And it's my pleasure to present to you tonight the city's fiscal year 25 Capital Improvement Project Program. This year's CIP funding request consists of 95 projects across multiple departments totaling over $84 million. Staff has selected some highlights from the CIP list that I will share with you. The CIPs will be grouped by department. At the end of each department grouping, I will share a summary slide showing the complete list of CIP projects for that department. And at the end of the presentation, we will have experts from the CIP departments available to answer any questions you might have. So to kick us off this evening is Roseville Electric with $30.3 million in fiscal year 25 capital project funding requests. Design and construction of new electric services to support residential and commercial development is an ongoing process. The fiscal year 25 estimated budget for new services is $6.7 million and will be funded by developer-paid reimbursements for the required labor and materials. The $2.6 million electric-funded Kirby Substation switchgear replacement project will retire end-of-life switchgear at Kirby Substation, which provides service to over 2,000 customers. Due to the age of the equipment, replacement parts are no longer available. Major equipment at the Vernon Substation, including the 12 kV switchgear, protection, and control devices, have reached the end of their life. The Vernon Substation serves nearly 5,000 customers, and its current capacity and design are not adequate to support growth in the downtown area. $1.7 million in funding is necessary to begin preliminary activities, including ordering the necessary 60 kilovolt underground cable. This project will include a complete rebuild of the substation and will expand to the recently acquired adjoining property. Funding is available for budgeting out of the electric fund, and the project is expected to take 5 to 6 years to complete. The Roseville Energy Park combustion turbines use a catalyst to reduce the emission of carbon dioxide and nitric oxide during operation. The catalyst has a finite life and needs to be replaced. The replacement of the catalyst allows us the opportunity to change to an improved catalyst system design, which will allow the turbines to run more efficiently. Funding for this project is available for budgeting from the electric fund. The R-Peak combustion turbines were initially installed by the state of California and were intended to only operate for 27 months. As such, much of the installation was designed to be temporary. With the renegotiation of the contract with the state, Roseville is on a path to own these units. Once Roseville has title, this project will begin the initial design of the durability improvements needed to support the operation of these units well into the future. The $1.3 million budget request out of the electric fund will begin the initial design and procurement for this project, which is expected to be completed over the next 4 years. This 116th South Grant Street building project will improve the 3rd and 4th floors of the building. The final phase of construction will provide space for electric and police department staff. The electric and police department are sharing the costs. The existing belt press on the zero liquid discharge system at the Roseville Energy Park is undersized during heavy summer operations and does not provide operational redundancy in the event of a failure. This $1.2 million project will replace the existing belt press with a more reliable technology capable of increased processing and redundancy. Funding is available out of the electric fund. The current utility customer self-service, or CSS portal, will be replaced with a new web portal and mobile app. It will integrate with enhanced metering data for customers to view, and it will add service request functionality to provide a more complete online customer self-service experience. The total cost of the $2.4 million upgrade will be shared between Roseville Electric and environmental utilities. The replacement of mainline and primary 12 kilovolt underground conductors nearing their end of life is an ongoing effort. This fiscal year 25 $1.2 million budget request enables us to maintain high reliability for our customers. Funding is available for budgeting out of the electric fund. Construction of the new Creekview substation is necessary to serve the Creekview and Amoruso Ranch specific plans. The substation is anticipated to be operational by the summer of 2027. Funding for this budget request is provided by both the Electric Department backbone fee and the electric fund. This ongoing project makes improvements to the 12 kV distribution system in order to increase system capacity and flexibility. This work includes upgrading conductors, adding additional feeds, and adding switches. The fiscal year 25 $1 million budget request is available out of the electric fund. This brings us to the comprehensive list of Roseville Electric CIP funding requests for fiscal year 25. The highlighted projects are those major projects that I previously covered with separate slides, and the remaining are smaller capital projects, and I'm just going to read through them real quickly to give people time to read these at home. Include Geographic Information System Upgrade, Ovation Integration and Expansion, Roseville Energy Park Switchgear Rehabilitation, Roseville Energy Park Zero Liquid Discharge Ultra Filtration Piping, Electric Fleet Electrification, Foothill Substation 60 kV Switch Replacement, Roseville Power Plant 2 Site Security Improvements, Roseville Energy Park Turbine Control System Upgrade, Roseville Energy Park Zero Liquid Discharge Instrumentation Rehabilitation, Electric relay replacement, electric 60 kV power line restringing, electric streetlight relocation, electric substation security upgrades, electric facilities improvements, electric Sierra Vista transformer addition, and electric utility billing redundancy. Next, we have the Environmental Utilities Department requesting funding for capital projects totaling $25.5 million. Excuse me while I take a drink. The Utility Operations Center will provide facilities for the city's Waste Services Division and Water Utility to meet the needs of new unfunded regulatory mandates and continued city growth. These facilities will include a material recovery facility, potential vehicle maintenance building, and heavy-duty vehicle charging infrastructure. For fiscal year 25, the budget request is for the $2.3 million Phase 1 Planning, Design, and Environmental Review and $4 million Phase 2 Financing and Construction. The total project cost is estimated to be $60 million. Design and CEQA efforts are planned for the next phase pending council approvals, and the funding sources are from the Water Operations and Waste Services Operations Fund. The Waste Services Comprehensive Software Solution will streamline and automate several customer service, safety, and routing processes. This project includes the procurement and implementation of software that improves process efficiency across business lines, improves program compliance and effectiveness, and that integrates with the city's utility billing system. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $500,000 from the Waste Services Operations Fund, and the project is expected to start this summer and be completed by 2026. The Dry Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant Biofilter System Rehabilitation Project will rehabilitate the existing primary biofilter odor control system and redesign and install a new foul air odor collection system at the plant. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $2.5 million, with the total project estimated to be $8 million. Funding is provided by the Wastewater Regional Rehabilitation Fund, and work is anticipated to be completed by the summer of 2027. The Church Street Wet Weather Upgrades Project will upsize multiple sewer gravity mains via pipe bursting, trench the installation of a new sewer gravity main, and abandon an existing sewer gravity main. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $4.9 million for the Wastewater Rehabilitation Fund, and the total project cost is estimated to be $5.4 million with completion by the summer of 2025. The 63-inch and 66-inch Interceptor Rehabilitation Project rehabilitates a large-diameter, regionally funded wastewater interceptor that parallels Dry Creek through historic Roseville. Based on condition assessment, staff recommends that plans be developed to perform spot repairs throughout the pipeline to lengthen the pipeline's useful life. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $2.5 million from the Wastewater Regional Rehabilitation Fund, and the total project cost is estimated $2.8 million with completion by the summer of 2026. The Barton Road Water Treatment Plant Wash Water Reclaim Basins 1 and 2 replacement project will replace the damaged concrete basins that have exceeded their useful life. The basins are used to store water from the water filter's backwash process. The decision to replace the existing basins was based upon a condition assessment completed in 2019. Consideration of the city's population growth projections and the related need for additional storage capacity, as well as the operational efficiencies that would be gained with the new facility. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $1 million from the Water Rehabilitation Fund. The anticipated total project cost is $8 million. The water treatment plant 2 million gallon tank rehabilitation project will replace the existing 2 million gallon tank as recommended by the condition assessment study. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $2 million from the Water Rehabilitation Fund with a total estimated cost of $7.5 million, and construction is anticipated to begin in fiscal year 26. Here's the comprehensive list of environmental utility CIP funding requests for fiscal year 25. Again, the highlighted projects are those major projects that I previously covered under separate slides, and the remaining are the smaller capital projects, and include the Dry Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant Digester 1 roof rehabilitation, Dry Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant fiber optic rehabilitation, Dry Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant utility water piping upgrades, Historian data repository updates, SCADA automation software updates, aquifer storage and recovery wells automation, Cooperative Raw Water Supply Reliability Project, dual-purpose pump stations, generator replacements, emergency backup generators for the well sites, pressure-reducing station rehabilitation, water storage tank site safety upgrades, Barton Road Water Treatment Plant alternate access, Dry Creek and Pleasant Grove Wastewater Treatment Plants lighting rehabilitation, Dry Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant operations and laboratory building construction project, water security and resiliency improvements, water distribution system improvements, downtown water mains rehabilitation, Phase 2, and backflow program technology project. This brings us to the Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Department, who is requesting funding for $8.9 million in capital projects for fiscal year 25. While there's no budget request in fiscal year 25 for this project, the CIP presentation would not be complete if I didn't mention the $63 million Roseville Soccer Complex. The project broke ground in June of 2023, and significant progress is being made as we round the corner in completing the first year of a 2-year construction schedule.
And when's our next shift on this? The council is working on this photograph.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
We're hands-on with this, right?
was it Wednesday? I don't know.
Wednesday?
Jill's
Okay.
back there.
All right.
She'll answer that question for you at the end. Now where did I leave off?
Another year.
So this summer, just to let you know, we'll see the turf fields begin to be installed. So that's some exciting work. The John Bayuk Park will begin construction this summer. Improvements include a ball field, open turf area, loop pathways, off-street parking, a restroom, covered picnic areas, and a children's play and swing area. $2.5 million in funding was approved in fiscal year 24 for the construction of this park. For fiscal year 25, an additional $300,000 is being requested from the Sierra Vista Neighborhood Park Fund. The 9-court lighted pickleball complex at the courts at Gibson Park was dedicated in March of 2024. This fiscal year 25 budget request of $300,000 will add landscaping and irrigation to the frontages of the park along Gibson Drive and Roseville Parkway. Funding for this work is from the General Citywide Park Fund. This streetscape improvement project will enhance the Rocky Ridge corridor south of Douglas to Kirby, then along Kirby from Champion Oaks to Sunrise, as well as areas within the Sunrise Greenway, which runs from the Citrus Heights Roseville border up to Kirby Way. Improvements will be maintenance-friendly, water-conserving plantings, dry creek beds, and water-efficient irrigation and repairs. $4 million in funding is requested for fiscal year 25 from the general fund surplus, with ongoing maintenance being requested from the general fund through the Parks, Recreations, and Libraries operations budget. The existing tennis courts at Woodbridge Park are in need of repairs. This project will demolish the old courts, much like we did at Mahaney Park's tennis courts, and rebuild them. The rebuild will convert one tennis court into 2 dedicated pickleball courts, keep one tennis court with overlapping pickleball court striping, and add an area for spectator seating shown in dark blue. The fiscal year 25 budget request is $350,000 from the Parks, Recreations, and Library Capital Rehabilitation Fund. Replacement of the Paneshi Park play structure has been under design since the beginning of fiscal year '24. The replacement of the play structure includes more than the play structure alone. The original playground design included a rubber play area that was shaped like a meteor. Over time, this has had to be repaired repeatedly and is not as successful as we would have liked it to be. The replacement of the play structure is an opportunity to remove the meteor and expand the play area. The project will be completed in 2 consecutive phases, with Phase 1 removing the meteor and expanding the play containment curbs, and Phase 2 installing the new, larger play structure. The $60,000 fiscal year '25 funding request is to offset the cost of this 2-step project. Funding is from the Highland Reserve North CFD sinking funds. Several new park projects are underway, like the FD 51 Neighborhood Park and the $600,000 fiscal year '25 request, which is for the construction of this small 1-acre neighborhood park. The JM 51 Neighborhood Park's $200,000 request is for design of this park, with construction dollars to be requested in fiscal year '26. And the JM 52 Neighborhood Park is requesting $200,000 in fiscal year '25. The funding source for these 3 parks is from the Sierra Vista Neighborhood Park Fund. This summer's Phase 1 of the Campus Oaks Park includes 2 pickleball courts, a restroom, and a fenced-off leash dog park. Phase 2 is considering improvements for a skate track, a BMX area, and a challenge fitness course, and should be completed during the summer of 2025. The fiscal year '25 budget request is $1.8 million, using $1 million in American Recovery Plan Act funding and $768,000 in neighborhood park funds. Wrapping up the major parks projects for fiscal year '25 are the golf-related improvements funded from the golf improvement funds for each golf course. For both the Diamond Oaks Golf Course and the Wood Creek Golf Club, $40,000 for each course will fund facility improvements for minor upgrades such as ramps, restrooms, drinking fountains, signage, and ADA. At the Wood Creek Golf Club pump station, the pump station at the Wood Creek Golf Club is a critical component of the golf course's irrigation system, and it's at its end of life and is due for replacement. And also at Wood Creek, the split rail fence at holes 13 and 14 are in need of replacement. So here's the comprehensive list of Parks, Recreation, and Libraries capital project funding requests for fiscal year '25. Going through the list, we have Doyle Park Play Structure Replacement, Tot Train Replacement at White Park, Caseburg Park Walkway, basketball courts at Santucci, Silverado Oaks, and Eastwood Parks, Wanish Park Shade Structure Replacement, and the Maidu Soccer Field entrance. Next slide. Up next are the Information Technology funding requests for fiscal year '25, totaling $2.7 million. The Citywide Content Management System Replacement Project replaces the city's current content management system, also known as the CMS, used to create the city website and intranet, which includes the hub. The system has reached its replacement cycle end date and needs to be replaced to allow the city to use the latest technology and information security protocols. The fiscal year '25 budget request is $289,000, with a total project funding at $439,000. Project funding comes from the Information Technology Internal Service Fund. The Regional Public Safety Dispatching System project will enhance the current computer-aided dispatch software with the ability for dynamic dispatching of available fire and police resources, while increasing information sharing, enhancing the ease of tracking resources, and improving overall incident response times. The fiscal year '25 budget request is $257,000, and the funding is from the city's general fund surplus. The Enterprise Project Management Software Implementation, or EPM, will aid departments in the management of their projects. The EPM system will provide enhanced project visibility, increased collaboration, resource optimization, improved financial planning, and robust tracking. The fiscal year '25 budget request is $402,000, funded through the Information Technology Internal Service Fund. The Fire Very High Frequency, or VHF, radio system upgrade project will replace the aging VHF radio system, which has been in service for over 15 years. The fiscal year '25 budget request is $527,000 from the city's general fund surplus. And here is the Information Technology project list summary. There are 3 additional projects listed here that I did not previously cover, and they are Fire Mobile Data Computers Replacement, Enterprise Asset Management Software Upgrades, and Enterprise Training Software. Public safety, fire and police have the next group of projects requesting a combined $760,000 in funding for fiscal year '25. Those projects are the Mobile Fire and Emergency Medical Services Reporting System, the Very High Frequency VHF handheld portable radios, and the Police Dispatch Workstations.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. How is that VHF different than the other VH? It's the same one?
I'm going to have to ask Say, and would you like an answer now or at the end?
We'll put a pin in it.
Okay. And then, finally, the final group of capital projects requesting funding for fiscal year '25 belongs to Public Works, with $16 million in project funding requests. But before I get to this year's funding requests, allow me to provide brief updates on some previously funded, high-profile existing Public Works projects, starting with Fire Station 8. As you can see in the pictures, construction of the newest fire station is well underway, with an expected early fall completion. The station is now being prepared to receive the brick finish on the outside and sheetrock on the inside. The Roseville Parkway Extension project is well underway. In the photo, you can see the two giant hills of dirt forming the approaches to the bridge. You can also see the column foundations in between the two. This drone image is a few weeks old, so the project is a little further along than shown. The big beams that will support the roadway going over the tracks in the road are being built off-site and will be delivered on some very large trailers and lifted into place over the road and tracks by cranes within the next 2 or 3 months. The project is on schedule for an early 2025 opening. The zero-emission bus and zero-emission fleet charging depot will be operational later this month. The project includes construction of a new 30-space bus and 70-vehicle fleet parking and charging area. While not all the chargers will be installed during initial construction because our current limited fleet of electric vehicles does not require it, the infrastructure will be in place to add additional chargers as our electric fleet continues to grow. The contractor's putting the finishing touches on the roundabout on Washington at All-America City, adjacent to the grounds. They are currently working on the landscaping, some of which just was put out there in the last week. And they are currently fabricating the central water tower feature. We hope to complete the project by the end of this month. The Pleasant Grove widening project between Foothills and Wood Creek Oaks began construction in April of this year. Construction is expected to be completed in the spring of 2025. Construction of the Blue Oaks and Westbrook traffic signal and roadway improvements began earlier this month and will be completed by the end of this year. The project will widen the road and install traffic signals at Blue Oaks and Hayden Parkway, Blue Oaks and Westbrook at both intersections with Brookstone adjacent to the Cummings Soccer Complex. The Roseville Parkway widening project is currently in design. Due to the higher than expected construction cost estimate and some higher priority projects, it will be built in 2 phases. Phase 1 will start in the spring of 2025 at an estimated cost of $6 million, funded through a combination of community facilities district funding and developer-paid traffic mitigation fees. This Phase 1 project will add a third left turn lane coming from Highway 65 on southbound Pleasant Grove, turning towards the mall onto eastbound Roseville Parkway, and construct right turn and left turn lane extensions at Roseville Parkway and Galleria Boulevard. The future $12 million phase will widen Roseville Parkway from 3 lanes to 4 lanes in each direction between Creekside Ridge and Gibson, once sufficient funding has been identified, which could be as soon as 2028 or 2029. And then earlier tonight, Council approved a design and environmental consulting contract for the Pleasant Grove Stormwater Retention Basin project. This 3,800 acre-foot flood retention basin in the Al Johnson Wildlife Area will store runoff entering Pleasant Grove Creek during major rain events in order to reduce Roseville's impact on our downstream neighbors. The design and environmental work will take 2 to 3 years, with construction following as soon as the estimated $25 million in construction funding has been secured. And then I just want to mention 3 high-profile non-capital projects requesting funding in fiscal year '25. The Rapid Link Express Bus Service pilot project, providing bus service every 30 minutes between Lincoln, the mall, Roseville's 2 hospitals, and the Watt and I-80 light rail station, is a non-capital project requesting $1.7 million in operations funding for fiscal year '25. This operations funding comes from various grants and regional funding sources and will support the first year and a half of the pilot project's 3-year term, starting in the spring of 2025. The next planned arterial roadway maintenance project will resurface Fairway between the city limits just south of Blue Oaks and Stanford Ranch, and resurface Junction between Foothills and Washington. The fiscal year 25 funding will come from federal gas tax and highly reserved community facility district funds. The total cost of the project is estimated at $3.5 million and will be completed in the summer of 2025. And residential roadway maintenance is currently being planned for the Quail Glen neighborhood north of Pleasant Grove Boulevard along Wood Creek Oaks. The estimated cost of this project is $2.6 million, funded with state gas tax, with work occurring during the summer of 2025. And now to the handful of projects requesting capital funding for fiscal year 25 for Public Works. First up, we have the Roseville Transit bus shelter replacement projects. We're going to replace the existing shelters with new, more modern shelters. These new shelters will improve the safety at the stops with increased lighting and visibility. The estimated project is $1.1 million and will be funded with state grants. Shelter replacement will likely start later this year. Baseline Traffic Signals project provides funding for the installation of traffic signals and related improvements along Baseline Road at Locust Road and Pleasant Grove Road. The existing stop signs along Baseline Road do not have sufficient capacity for current or future traffic volumes. The estimated project cost is $10.8 million, with the cost being shared three ways between the city, Placer County, and Sutter County at approximately $3.6 million each. The fiscal year 25 budget request adds $1.6 million to the previously approved $2 million, thereby fully funding Roseville's share of the cost. Construction is scheduled to begin in 2025. The Vernon Atlantic Multimodal Safety Project will construct a raised landscape median to lower speeds, reduce turning movements, and more safely guide traffic through the Vernon Atlantic S-curve. Additional improvements include the installation of a high-visibility crosswalk with rectangular rapid flashing beacons at the Jefferson Street, Vernon Street intersection, buffered bike lanes, and resurfacing. Funding will come from state gas tax, local transportation funds, and a $500,000 Highway Safety Improvement Program grant. The council chambers renovation project will make several improvements to the council chambers, including the addition of a new lobby, a larger council closed session and staff room. The estimated cost of the project is $2 million, funded by cable TV, public educational and governmental funds, and public facilities funds. Construction is expected to begin this coming winter. Phase 1 of the 2-mile-long Dry Creek Greenway East Multi-Use Trail Project is under construction with completion expected in 2026. Phase 1 will complete the trail system between Darling at Riverside and Maidu Park on Rocky Ridge. Phase 2 of the Dry Creek Greenway Trail will construct 1.5 miles of Class 1 bikeways between Rocky Ridge and Old Auburn Road that will facilitate a future regional trail connection to the American River Parkway once Placer County completes their adjacent segment. The ultimate goal is a 70-mile loop system of interconnected paved trails in the Sacramento-Placer region. The fiscal year 25 request of $100,000 in local transportation funds will go towards beginning the design of Phase 2, with construction hopefully following shortly after the completion of Phase 1. The Police Department Facility Expansion Project will design and construct needed capacity improvements at the existing Police Department facility. The expansion includes new public and secured parking, the acquisition of Corporation Yard Road from Placer County, and tenant improvements expanding the training and locker room areas. The estimated cost of the project is $8 million, funded by the Public Facilities Fund. Design work will begin later this year. This brings us to the comprehensive list of Public Works CIP funded requests for fiscal year 25. And again, the highlighted projects are the ones I already spoke about. And the remaining smaller projects include some ADA upgrades and barrier removals in our facilities, construction of a compressed natural gas fleet repair bay out at the Corporation Yard, light-duty lift station out at the Corporation Yard in the fleet facility, fleet services charge management software solution, flood risk reduction facility repair and replacement project, Westbrook Boulevard signal installation project design work. And the final capital project requesting funding in fiscal year 25 is the Taylor Road commuter bus stop upgrade project. That concludes this evening's presentation, and I and representatives of the other CIP departments are available should you have any questions.
There's a lot there. Questions from the council? All right. Now I'll open the public comment. Public comment, bring back to the council. Anything? All right. This is for information only. You covered a lot. Concisely, thank you.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is Environmental Utilities Department Budget Update.
Good evening, Mayor Havishall, members of the council. I'm Rich Plecker. I'm your EU director. Just a shout out to Jason. Somebody has to do that long list of capital projects, and so he always seems to lose the Rochambeau every year. I appreciate it. I've got a little update for you tonight. I'm disappointed to see that Dennis isn't here to monitor my behavior and dress and attire and all that, because this is one of those things that Dennis requires of me annually. It seems I talk about it at least once a year, in some years twice a year, but we'll get started. I'll try to make this informative and hit the high spots of what we're up to. So the next slide, and then you'll notice this is an upgraded slide. Graphics department got a hold of this and sort of snazzy it up here a little bit. But, you know, overall, environmental utilities' charge and mission is to remain fiscally responsible in an ever-changing world. It's really kind of a broad statement to say that we own and operate in Roseville a growing and progressive and customer-focused set of utilities that really focuses on service. How we do that, we've talked about this before, but EU utilizes a 10-year forward-looking forecasting system. The only way we can handle some of the numbers that you saw in the previous slides in terms of capital costs is by projecting and forecasting those well out into the future. Even doing that still scares us, but if we hadn't, or if we don't do that, it even gets even more scary. We always start with the admonition that our priority in operations of the utilities is we prioritize value, overall customer value, not necessarily the lowest possible cost of utilities. We believe, and time has proven, that better value is the objective that we're after. And as always, we operate the utilities in a way that we're extremely proud of, but that also results in very high customer satisfaction. Our most recent customer satisfaction is in the 97-98% category. Secondarily, we mentioned, and this comes up, I'm sorry, back to the previous slide, let me finish this one up. We always mention that we're funded by user fees. We're not funded by taxes. So property taxes, sales tax, things of that nature that are general fund revenues, those don't come to the utility. Rather, the utility tends to pay for services provided to it by the general fund. That's something that I affectionately call Dennis's corporate tax rate that he imposes every year. But it's really what it is it's a recovery for utility-based demands placed upon the general fund. So the utilities operate in a very business-like fashion. By your direction some number of years ago, we also implement rate changes every couple of years in smaller increments as opposed to waiting longer periods of times as is customary in other utilities, some of whom will go 5-10 years without doing rate adjustments. You've expressed a preference to us that we do that every 2 years. So that's just a preference. And then later, we also talk about we're dedicated to good, maintaining this good service, dependability, and rehabilitation. Many of the projects you saw in Jason's presentation previously were rehabilitation types of projects. These are taking care of older infrastructure that we've literally just worn out. And most of the things that our utilities operate, ironically, are equipment systems that are designed to do exactly that, wear themselves out. So it's a continuous process. Next slide, please. This is another Dennis required slide. He requires that I show numbers. So we show our expense forecast for the coming year on all of our three major utility areas. Top number being $43.7 million for water. That's the total expenditure forecast. And that's broken up by the green bar, which is $36.5 million, which is normal operating costs. $7.2 million of which we expect to forecast that goes into rehabilitation. We use that as sort of a flexible savings account. You'll see that trend across all three of those utilities. This truly is a differentiator in Roseville. Most of our peers in the region don't do this. They don't fund rehabilitation out of rates. That number, that 7.2, we call it transfers. In that transfer, it takes care of other things too, but rehab is the primary component. We dedicate a significant portion, and it varies by year type, to those rehabilitation costs for exactly that reason, is to keep up on what's going on there. As you can tell, in aggregate, it's a very large business where our total budget's well in excess of $100 million a year. It's very expensive, very costly to run these utility systems in terms of people, in terms of the actual electricity, chemical costs, all the things it takes to keep it running, and most importantly, to maintain regulatory compliance. So each one of these, you'll see that number varies, 7.2. At year end, that number probably will be different because any savings that we accrue during the fiscal year, we tend to pledge those back into rehabilitation. So it goes back into a savings account. So next slide. So another requirement, you have to show a pie chart. This shows the relative size of the utilities, different type of pie chart this time. Basically, they're all about the same. This was something that we saw coming a while back. It used to be that water was probably the largest one of the utilities. We knew that that was going to change. Relatively speaking, water being a very political activity, not necessarily the most expensive or the most costly utility that we operate. Wastewater utility by far is the largest. Very, very difficult process to do that. Next slide. Now we talk about our focus areas. What I like to think of as the more important things we're dealing with going forward. We break these up into 4 main tranches: fiscal performance, legislative and policy vis-a-vis unfunded mandates, resource portfolio, and then workforce development. Next slide. On the fiscal performance side, obviously utilities is a lot about minding the money. As I mentioned, we are in the second year of a 2-year rate case with an inflation eroding gains. Back when we started this process, I will say, coming out of the pandemic in 2021, we were at a juncture where we were trying to really look at the forward-looking forecasts and decide what the inflationary increases that we were seeing, are they transitory or are they permanent inflation? We wanted to be optimistic about that, and we tended to be optimistic with our rate forecasts. Time has proven, however, that inflation looks to be a little bit more stubborn than it is transitory, and that it's not really going to go away. Real inflation, as we measure it, been about 18% growth, inflationary growth, since that 2021 time period. And what that means is, most certainly in the next year when we go through the next rate cases, I think we're going to experience some pressure on rates on all those utilities. However, for the fiscal 25, this coming July 1st, we're looking at, this is an average increase of customers, $2.17, $3.03 on the wastewater side. Again, that's for the average customer within Roseville. Actual mileage may vary. When we design rate increases, again, we like to do them frequent. We like to do them small in terms of their overall impact to our consumer budget. But there's a number of things taking place in the world that are beyond our control to be able to control that. So the last thing I'll point out is that in conjunction with the finance department and the audit, we're always looking for enhanced internal control structures, ways of doing things, so that we maintain transparency, that people can get a good look at what we're doing on the financial sides of things. Next slide. This is a favorite slide of many, reformatted in a different format. When I mentioned earlier that we don't operate the utilities to be the lowest cost, because it's easy to do that. All we'd have to do to be the cheapest utility provider in the region is stop doing things. But as it is, because I think of our track record and the track record of those who came before us, and our ability to keep moving forward in a progressive, or at least in a steady sort of fashion, our rates are amongst the lowest in the region. Whether that's water, wastewater, trash, doesn't really matter. This particular slide shows kind of a snapshot at any given time of where we are in comparison to other utilities. One I will throw out for example is the city of Lincoln has just recently passed a series of very, very high rate increases that really haven't hit yet. And those rate increases are a result of some 5 to 7 years, if I have it straight, of not taking any rate action and letting those costs creep up on you to the point where they're in double-digit rate increases. And that's really just to maintain their liquidity and their bond ratings. That's not to do any of the other things like rebuild equipment. So I think that speaks to the wisdom that this council's had in the past of moving forward, as tough as it is, but just doing what you've got to do.
Rich, before you move beyond this, why Underwater is Roseville's 5189. Not below Fair Oaks is Water District 5445.
You know, that's a good call, because I actually picked that up in the drafts, and it wasn't reflected on this either.
Okay.
That's downgrading us.
Well,
Can't have
right.
that.
That's putting us, yeah. We're thinking-
Good catch. We must have missed it in production. Sorry about that. So we're second lowest. Next slide, please. This is a favorite of many, particularly our city manager. Utilities seem to be the playground of the legislature and the federal government of late. There's a lot of things that come down in terms of ways that we all can live better lives. And for whatever reason, the utilities seem to be the target of a lot of this. Much of this you've already heard, but I'll kind of give you an update on some of it. The big one in the state of California that we were fighting this last year was the Advanced Clean Fleet Initiative. That was basically the electrification of our entire commercial fleet of vehicles within EU and across the city. In later stages of the regulatory development, they decided to exempt fire trucks, which I thought was a stroke of genius, but and that's a good thing. But they didn't exempt backhoes, loaders, dump trucks, heavy duty vehicles, garbage trucks. We now have to, right now, as the regulation reads, half of the fleet that we procure from this date forward, half of them now have to be electric vehicles. The other half can continue to be whatever fuel you're having. 2027, they all have to be electric. So obviously, the financial impact of doing that is pretty substantial. We estimated here pretty conservatively, this is well over $100 million over the next 20 years. That's notwithstanding where are the electrons going to come from to charge these vehicles, where's the infrastructure to deliver the electrons going to come from. Don't really know, but our strategy thus far is we're going to use our fuel sources that we've developed at Pleasant Grove until we no longer can. We're going to rebuild trucks. We're going to do all the advanced purchasing that we can do into the future. But in some cases, we just really don't have a clue as to how we're going to meet this regulation. There's just no solution path in sight. And hopefully I'm conveying the frustration involved in that. We're people that like to solve problems, and there's no clear path forward for doing that.
Is hydrogen in that mixture anywhere?
I'm sorry?
Is hydrogen in that mixture anywhere?
Could be. It's not currently, but it could be. The second one I want to mention is the lead and copper regulation. You may have heard about this on national news. I think at face value, it sounds like a very good regulation to get lead and copper out of distribution systems. This is directly related to recent years' experience in Flint, Michigan. But the problem with this particular regulation as written, coming from EPA, is it will require the city to go onto private property and to remedy lead and copper systems in homes. And this is kind of crossing a time-honored Mason-Dixon line in the utilities, which is we stop at the meter. What happens on the private property side of things, that's on private property owners, not the city. This opens up a whole host of access, legal, liability issues. When do you stop? How do you do this? The good news in this regulation is that Roseville's a relatively new community, even though some parts of us are 100 years old. Most of that has been ridded from the system already. We'll have to test. We'll have to do a number of different things to report on this. But unlike an older city back east, like pick on Boston or Baltimore, that's a $1 trillion problem nationally dealing with this regulation. So while our impact here locally is still going to be something, it won't be nothing, but we will still have the problems of dealing with the access and how do we do all of this. Again, well-intended legislation that perhaps didn't really think through all the ramifications. I've talked about before the water efficiency standards. Those standards keep going down, 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 down. The wrangling and basically reporting and the data standards that are behind all that, it's driving a lot of staffing changes. It's changing the type of people that we hire that literally don't do anything but report data to the state. And that's what they do. Not the funnest positions that we want to justify to filling, but you got to do it. Water loss performance standards are right there in sort of the same boat. And the last one I want to mention here, we've talked about PFAS. You saw recently in the last couple of weeks that the EPA and the state of California have adopted the first 6 PFAS standards in drinking water. That's 6 constituents that are made up of this PFAS class out of about 30,000 different chemical compounds. What that's going to entail, how you treat for that, how we deal with that, I don't have any idea. Good news is there are some treatment technologies depending on the type of PFAS and how it's, how it comes out in your system. It could maybe not be quite as bad as everyone thought. The good news is, Roseville, we have not detected PFAS in any of our source water supplies. That's not to say that it exists in our waste streams, solid waste streams, and it also exists in our wastewater streams. It exists in our biosolids that come out of our wastewater treatment plants. And so continued land application and disposal of these biosolids may prove to be problematic depending on where these regulations go. So that's it for that section of unfunded mandates, things we get to pay for. Next step, talk a little bit about resource portfolio. These are the things that you all know that we've been bullish on building out the aquifer storage and recovery program. We dedicated a well late last year. We have 2 more. 2 more have been drilled. We'll be doing the topside on those 2 here very shortly. We continue to get those out and really add to the robustness, I think, of our resiliency program. Likewise, we continue to work with our best neighbors, PCWA, in the water space to create additional water supply reliability. Project I'm talking about here is a project that directly links our Barton Road water treatment plant to the Ophir facility, where we can use a variety of different water sources independent of diverting water from Folsom. Very ambitious project. We've received authorization through the WRDA Act. In conjunction with the Corps of Engineers, we're trying to help them figure out how to spend money for us on our own behalf, but that's proven to be quite a challenge because most organizations are facing some degree of institutional change or succession planning challenges, but we persevere nevertheless. Jason mentioned earlier, we're continuing our work on the Utility Operations Center out west. That's going to be a critical part of our operations moving forward. It creates not just physically the land space to park some of the vehicles that we have, but it also provides us alternatives to what we're doing now should the need arise for us to do something different. Next one, we're talking about the planning is underway for the expansion of both wastewater treatment plants. Last year, we celebrated the completion of the expansion at Pleasant Grove. We will be starting the next expansion. That'll take a couple of years for us to get there, but we're already, that's just it's an indicator of the level of growth that we've experienced in the last sort of pandemic period and after that. And as I mentioned earlier, we're the ongoing rehabilitation of assets, what we continue to work on. Next slide. Workforce development, getting towards the end here. Like all departments in the city, we all face certain stresses and things that we focus on. They all tend to change over time. Ours is we have a continuing sort of expansion of the workload and the mission, some of it that we're really not interested in doing, but we have to do it. The whole idea of recruiting and retaining people is proving to be problematic in certain job classifications sort of post-pandemic. It turns out that the whole entire free world, whether they're public agencies or consulting firms, are all fighting over engineers, accountants, and finance people. And so our ability to attract and retain them in days gone by, we used to be able to shine the light in the sky and have thousands of applicants come running. That's not the reality that we're seeing these days. So we've been in partnership with HR, a number of different trade organizations, really trying to up our game when it comes to recruiting. Roseville's still a great place to work, but I think our voice is getting drowned out in the myriad of other potential suitors for technical folks especially. Succession planning and knowledge transfer is an ongoing effort as well. As the baby boom generation tends to retire out and do different things, we have to prepare the next generation of leaders to step up and take charge. And we've been pretty successful at doing that. So with that, we say we try to use our good values and our culture to drive positive change in the utilities. The next slide. This brings me to the do you have any questions part.
I think it's our favorite slide. Any questions, anybody? All right, public comment, anybody? Please come to dais.
I have a concern as there's this big push and we're going really fast with all the electric vehicles. So I have a couple questions then. I had a hybrid car and the battery, which is very expensive, would have to be replaced after so many years. So is that the same case with all these electric vehicles that we're going to? And they have multiple big batteries in them. Where are those batteries going? So if they've run out of recharging and have got to be replaced, where are these thousands of batteries going to go? And we thought about that. The other part of it is, we already saw an increase at the last meeting for water. And I'm wondering about the electrical side then. With so much of our energy, the electricity is going to charging, and you've got this big charging station for your buses and cars and so forth. What is going to be the result to the residential consumer of electricity? Are we expecting then very large increases coming our way too? So those are my two big concerns.
All right. Before you answer, any other public comment? City Manager or Mr. Plecker, you want to answer the first question?
I was going to answer it unless
That's
you
water.
directed me to.
Where's the electric?
So, in general, we're talking about two different things here.
Yeah.
So, and my issue is not with hybrid vehicles or even passenger vehicles that are battery driven. My issue is with fleet scale, heavy duty industrial equipment who now fall under a regulatory regime where they have to be electric moving forward, where there are no such commercial vehicles available for purchase. If I wanted to buy an electric dump truck today, I couldn't do it. They don't exist. So that's one question. Now, separating out the other things, the expense, the cost, all of that stuff, absolutely, it's not going to get any cheaper because the electricity simply doesn't exist and the infrastructure to deliver it doesn't exist. The batteries to power some of these vehicles, we estimate it's going to take two 8,000-pound batteries to fuel a garbage truck that will work half a day. And that garbage truck will be $1.2 million. So the math on it is mind-blowing.
No, great answers, Rich. I think that some of these are also philosophical, right? A lot of this is being part of the advanced clean fleet is coming from the state. There's state regulations. There's not an option to comply. There's a timeline, and so we work towards that timeline of compliance. We have some of the same questions, candidly, of the battery storage and where that's going to go, and we're going to be working with our landfill and our different partners to work to do that. And I think as far as the costs, I think we've been very clear for the last decade that moving in this direction costs money, right? It's more expensive. You can argue that it adds value. It's safer. It's cleaner, right? Not going to have a political statement, but it absolutely is more expensive. There's no doubt about that. As far as our utility rates, our electric utility is up next. So I'll turn it back to the mayor.
Yeah, and I think these are, just from my personal opinion, these are aspirational goals that are, in there in the climate. They're unfunded mandates, and I think for me, the biggest challenge is we don't mine rare earth minerals here to create the battery technology. Anyway, we share your concern. I think that's what I should have said to begin with and stop there. But anyway, any other public comment? If not, I'll bring it back to council. Any other questions or comments? If not, this is for information only. Thank you for your presentation. And next up is our electric department update with Joanne Cucci and Dan Beans and Eric, right? Is it? Oh, yep. Is Eric coming? Yeah. All right. All three. All right.
All right, well, good evening, Honorable Mayor and councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce the Electric Department's proposed budget for fiscal year 25. This budget was developed in alignment with both City Council strategic plan and the updated Electric Department strategic plan. It does fund all aspects of the Electric Department to deliver on our mission to deliver safe and reliable electricity at competitive rates with exceptional service. And it maintains compliance with the City Council-approved financial policies and metrics. So some of the economic conditions that are reflected in this budget include growth. Roseville Electric expects to add approximately 1,500 residential customers in FY25. That's consistent with the recent trends of about a 2% growth rate. Inflation has been generally moving in a better direction, but materials and labor costs continue to see significant increases. For example, transformers have experienced a 300% increase in cost over the last 4 years. Competition for technical resources has placed an extreme amount of upward pressure on labor costs. Supply chain issues persist in multiple segments of the economy, creating long lead times for materials. So large substation transformer, we're looking at some new substations, upgraded substations. Those are being quoted 3 to 4 to 5 years, depending on exactly what it is. It used to be 1 year. So now you got to buy all this stuff ahead of time. Distribution transformers for subdivisions, lead times used to be just a few weeks. Now it's still 2 years or so, 1.5 to 2 years. Electric meters, just a meter on your house is a year out. Bucket trucks, we're getting quoted 6 years out. So you want to buy a bucket truck, you better order it now for 2030, and you might get it in 2031 or so. And like I said, in order to mitigate the impact of these supply chain issues, we are procuring and holding more materials and equipment so we can be responsive and continue to support the community. Other issues that create uncertainty in our business, similar to what Rich has alluded to, elevated interest rates, the upcoming presidential election could have an impact, and of course, the subsequent continual federal and state policy changes are definitely a challenge. By the way, I wanted to thank you for the approval of the rate proposal. Today we had the second reading. The revenue generated from the new rates will generate around a little over $29 million for fiscal year 25. And as you will see in a moment, this is very necessary to fund our budget. And with that, I'm going to ask Joanna Cucci, our finance manager, to give you the presentation.
Good evening. So the electric budget includes a number of pieces, starting out with electric operations. That includes $114 million of power supply expenses and $61 million of operations expenses. Our capital improvement capital improvement plan for FY25 includes $29 million of capital investments. Next up would be the franchise fee. The franchise fee is approved through the city charter. It requires that 4% of electric revenues electric expenses be transferred to the general fund to fund police, fire, and parks and recreation. So that 4% is included in our annual budget. Next up is city streetlights and city traffic signals. The electric department funds city streetlights and the maintenance of traffic signals. The total of those two items are about $3 million in FY25. Roseville Electric funds 50% of Roseville Utility customer care costs, so that's our customer billing and utility service center, which is now located in 116 Grant Street. We also fund 50% of the Utility Exploration Center, including all of their improvements that they've recently done. And then finally, the electric department pays their share of city IT at $2.4 million for FY25, central services at $1 million for FY25, and then other internal support services at $4.4 million, and this includes things like the city manager, city attorney, the finance department, et cetera. And so in total, that's what makes up our entire budget for next fiscal year. The share of costs for city services, those are services that the electric department receives from the city, and so it's basically a reimbursement for those services. So this slide walks you through our current year and then proposed FY25 budget. In FY24, we started the year with a negative $7 million in net annual cash flow. That negative 7 was going to be mitigated by the sale of GHG funds to fund the AMI project. So
GHG, greenhouse gas emissions.
Greenhouse gas funds to fund the AMI project, Advanced Metering Infrastructure Project. So that wasn't included in the budget line under other revenue. But as you can see in the forecast now, you can see those revenues coming in the forecast FY24 budget at we're expecting around $9 million, I believe, of funding from the sale of those. So looking at the forecast for FY24, we are showing a negative $9 million in net annual cash flow. The change that you see here is we do have that additional revenue coming in at the top line. We also have additional capital expense versus budget, and that additional expense is being funded by the carry forward of capital projects from prior fiscal years. So these were projects that were funded in previous fiscal years, and they got completed or will be completed in FY24. So that is carry forward funds from other fiscal years that is being spent. A lot of this is the advanced metering infrastructure project where we've been working on that for a number of years, and we are wrapping that up this fiscal year. And so we're spending funds that were budgeted in prior fiscal years for that. So looking at the FY25 budget, please go back one slide. Thank you. The energy sales, so this is our revenue from sales, is expected to be $206 million. This includes the $30 million in rate case, or 29 and change, in rate case revenue that was just approved. As you can see, that including that $29 million revenue, we do have a net annual cash flow of 0. So that was extremely needed to be able to balance our FY25 budget. Looking at the other revenue line, you do see a decrease in other revenue, and that is the roll-off of that revenue that was used to fund AMI. Our operating expenses have increased. That is largely just inflationary growth, labor, and then power supply expense. Net operating revenue is down. It was down in the forecast, and then it's down for FY25, and that's the roll-off of the CDWR, California Department of Water Resources, revenue that we were getting for the siting of the power plants on the REP land. And other than that, we're largely flat in terms of expenses. Our capital expense is up a little. We do have the beginning of a number of substations starting in FY25 that we have to purchase the transformers early before we get into the construction due to the timelines that Dan mentioned. So based on all that, we are looking at a 0 net cash flow in FY25. We're able to fund all of our expenses with the revenue we expect. So based on that, our FY25 proposed financial metrics, we have a requirement or a metric to have 250 days or more days cash on hand. With the proposed budget, we're looking at 277 days, so we will meet that requirement. And then debt service coverage ratio, this is how many times we could pay our debt past our expenses. This is a requirement of rating agencies. We're required to be above 2 per our policy, and we will be at 5.29 for next fiscal year with these changes, or with this proposal. So based on this proposed budget provides a sound financial foundation for FY25. It is cost-based. We have cost-based and competitive rates, and with the approval of the proposed rate adjustment, we are able to fund our expenses for FY25. We continue to have an emphasis on long-term planning and cost discipline. Like environmental utilities, we do look at a 10-year forward forecast in expenses, capital, revenues, and load expectations as we look to the future. And then S&P and Fitch rate Roseville Electric at AA, which is very good credit rating for electric utility, and it is a bid high grade quality of bonds. Okay, and I'm going to turn it over to Eric Campbell, who is our Assistant Electric Utility Director.
Good evening, Mayor Habershaw, Commissioners. Eric Campbell, Roseville Electric. So how are we going to spend this money in FY25? We go through an extensive planning process. We did a lot of I'll say research and discussion internally over the past year developing the electric strategic plan. You're going to see that we've done some mapping between that and the City Council strategic plan and how we come up with some of these initiatives. We have 5 key initiatives within the electric strategic plan. The first is customer relationships. We're a customer-centric, customer-driven organization. Reliability is a priority. You know, our reliability that we enjoy here in the area is second to none. Our team is a priority. So our people, we invest in our people. We want to invest in them. We make sure those folks, like once they come, we want them to stay. Next is advocacy. We invest a lot in advocacy, whether it's Dan's advocacy for transformers, stateside, manufacturing, cybersecurity, what have you. And then lastly, financial strength. That's our last key driver for the electric utility. So you're going to see some overlap here and some mappings I'm going to try to walk through. So the first one here is remain fiscally responsible in a changing world. We chose the City Council strategy to balance city services and customer rates amid legislative mandates and rising cost. The first item here is under the customer relationships bucket. We have a new tool in the works. It's the Customer Connect project. It's a replacement of our customer portal. The current portal's at the end of life. We need to replace it. I think Jason mentioned this project early on. We're really excited about that. This isn't just a replacement of the existing tool. It's also going to have some of the AMI data included, some more analytical tools to allow customers to understand their load. Next, customer-facing programs. We have a pilot plan for this year, a demand response pilot. That's something that we've had in the past. We're looking forward to this. I think it's going to target roughly 1,000 customers initially out of the gate. If it's successful, we'll push it out throughout the additional rest of the service territory. Advanced metering. We just finished with the last, I'll say, electric meter was installed about two weeks ago, maybe 3. So we're going to have a whole lot of data. And the AMI project is more than just utility billing data. It's also going to allow us to understand our customer behavior better, load forecasting, and there's a whole lot of operational tools that the infrastructure is going to provide. We're going to be able to know if there's an EV at the residence. We'll have tools around transformer loading, voltage. So it's more than just a tool for utility billing. It's also an operational tool to get the most out of our infrastructure. This last item here, it's under advocacy and financial strength. We've put a lot of work into grant opportunities and identifying grant opportunities. We recently got an approval for $1.5 million from the state on it's a distributed electric backup asset. We call it DEBA. And that's part of the path of taking ownership of the DWR units. This is an important approval for us. So we're looking forward to getting that money and getting those upgrades in place. Next, enhance economic vitality. And this is all about fostering the business climate here. We think the biggest item here is our rates. We think our rates are a big part of why people want to live and do business in Roseville. So we put a lot of effort in maintaining our low rates. Do a lot of work with developers, both on the residential side and the commercial side. That work is continuing to move forward. Next, we have invest in well-planned infrastructure. Reliability and financial strengths. This first one here, evaluate and optimize new and current generation investments. Big item here is the DWR units. I think Joanna mentioned those are the 2 peaker units we have out at the Roseville Energy Park. We're on a path to take title of those at some point in the next few months. At that point, we'll be able to start monetizing those for the benefit of Roseville ratepayers. So we're looking forward to that. Next, focus on distribution system investment. This is all about reliability. We're continuing to invest in our system, making sure there's redundancy throughout the infrastructure. And then lastly here is support community electrification and EV adoption. It's an affluent community. We have quite a few people that own EVs, and so we're making sure that we're supporting those customers as well. Next, support community engagement and advocacy. This goes back to what I mentioned earlier with a lot of Dan's advocacy for transformers, stateside manufacturing, some of the cybersecurity stuff as well. We also partner with a number of other agencies, Northern California Power Administration, California Municipal Utility Association, and work with their LEGREG folks as well. And then finally here, deliver exceptional city services. And this is really all about our team and investing in our team, making sure they have the appropriate training opportunities, making sure it's a place that they enjoy working and want to stay. Secondly that's the building across the street. Where we're looking forward to getting our team back together. Right now we're kind of in a couple of different locations, 2090 and 116 across the street. We should be able to move into that facility later this year. Next, other issues, and I'm going to kind of lump some of these together. The first three here, purchase power, renewable energy resources, and natural gas. I'm going to start with natural gas. Why this is an issue or potential risk, we have a contract with PG&E for natural gas. They have the only pipeline to pipe in natural gas here at our service territory. We currently have a negotiated discount with them. It's pretty significant. I think it's roughly $7 to $8 million. That discount's not always guaranteed. I think right now it goes through the end of 26, calendar year 26. So there is some risk out beyond 26 with respect to that. Renewable energy resources, these are our renewable energy credits. The market for those credits is a bit outrageous right now. The cost of non-compliance is actually less than compliance. So that's something that we're looking at that's pretty interesting. And then you've all heard the story around purchase power and natural gas. We've been before you a number of times for rate proposals with information on that. Next, ledge reg. Rich talked about this quite a bit with the Clean Fleet, Air Resources Board. I think you're all aware in 2035, California is no longer going to permit the sale of combustion engines. So we have that on the horizon. One more comment about this. We don't really foresee a shortfall in electrons. Just looking at our models, out into the future, we'll have sufficient resources here for the service territory. And in many ways, a lot of these regulations can be beneficial to the electric utility in terms of additional load. Labor market adjustments, these are a persistent risk. The big issue here is that we're in competition with SMUD and PG&E for these technical resources. So we need to keep pace, and that ends up being some pretty significant increases for the utility. Economic uncertainty, Dan mentioned the presidential elections. There's also policy risk there as well. Approval of the proposed rate adjustments. This presentation was put together a number of weeks ago, before it was approved. So that's why you see that here. That's no longer a risk. Thank you very much for that. And of course, with that approval, we're able to maintain our financial soundness. And then what about beyond FY25? Building electrification, that's not just an FY25 thing. That's going to be a new, I'll say, steady state, something that we're investing in over the next several years. Same thing with EV infrastructure, really trying to understand, where those hot spots are in the area, where charging stations need to be, that type of thing. Time of day rates, EV rates, with the AMI data, the advanced metering data, we're going to be able to put together time of day rates. That's probably not until 2026 at the earliest, but that's something that we're looking at. Carbon-free mandates, I think you're all aware of the 2045 target the state has. That's coming quick. It's already 2024, so this is 20 years away. Our neighbors at SMUD, they have a goal to be carbon-free in 2030. That doesn't do a whole lot for us from a market perspective. It strains resources within the marketplace. Next, smart grid enhancements. This is the AMI project. There's a whole lot of, I'll say, applications that we can push on the infrastructure to get better capability out of it. Creekview sub. This is our next to last, major sub. I think we mentioned this earlier, or Jason mentioned it earlier in the CIP presentation. Vernon substation. We're putting a lot of investment in the Vernon sub. That's one of the few areas in the city that we don't have redundancy, so we should have redundancy after this effort. And then future growth projects. Big item here is Bosch. Bosch is huge for us. It's tremendous. And so we're working close with them on what their load might look in the coming years. And with that, you can open it up for questions.
Great. Questions? No? All right. Open it for public comment. Close public comment. Any comments on this? It's for information only. Challenging environment, right? When we had the rate case come before us, I think I was pretty dramatic in saying that we were hostages in this situation, and I think we are. It's not policy that we generate, right? It would be interesting, Mr. City Manager and Ms. Cucci, to know how much of this is what we accomplish is done through grant funding versus ratepayers. It would really help folks understand. And if these are our numbers, those in Pioneer, in PG&E, and others, they have to, I'm assuming they're even more challenged in in having a bottom line that is
Yeah.
not insolvent.
We're about 50% less than PG&E rates.
Right. But it'd be nice to know, like the bus electrification and other things, because I know you do a lot of seeking for grant funding, so it's not coming out of ratepayers' pockets. So thank you for that. Unless there's anything else, we'll thank you for your informational item.
Thank you.
Now we're going to get into the second third of the meeting, or what seems like, geez. Okay. We're going to start public hearings, and first one is the Community Development Block Grant 2024-2025 Annual Action Plan. I'll open the public hearing and have the staff presentation from Christine, who I've failed to learn how to pronounce her last name.
Fails.
And say it again?
Fails.
Fails, okay, all right. Well, none of our staff fails, okay, let's just say that. So, and our housing director, Trish Isom, will take your report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Haudashelt and Council. I'm Tricia Isom, the Housing Manager, and with me tonight I have Christine Fales, and she'll be presenting our CDBG Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, Tricia. Good evening, Mayor Haudashelt and members of the City Council. I, again, am Christine Fales, Housing Analyst in the Economic Development Department. So tonight I'm presenting the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan, which is routine in nature. So the City of Roseville is a community development block grant entitlement jurisdiction and receives an annual allocation of CDBG funds from HUD to promote affordable housing and community development programs for low-income residents. The City of Roseville's 2024 CDBG award has not yet been announced by HUD. The allocation is estimated to be around $700,000. In addition, it is anticipated that the city will receive around $50,000 in program income during program year 2024. The CDBG award is broken down into different funding categories. A maximum of 20% can be allocated for planning and administration, which pays for annual program management and administration of individual CDBG grants. A maximum of 15% of program funds can be allocated for public services, which can go toward programs such as mental health services, food, and services for the unsheltered. The remainder of the funds must go toward public facility projects, which could include improvements to infrastructure, activities related to housing, and neighborhood improvements. In order to determine which applications were funded for 2024, staff convened a review panel that consisted of CDBG staff from City of Roseville and City of Rockland, as well as program consultants. Requests for funding under the public service category totaled approximately $331,000. The majority of the proposed programs were for ongoing programs under the city's current and past funding cycles. In accordance with the rating and ranking scoring scale and based on competitive and limited public service funding of 15% of the CDBG grant allocation, the top 6 ranked applications out of 8 received are recommended to receive funding. The 2 applications not recommended for funding received low marks for ability to leverage the grant amount and in the fiscal responsibility portion of the rating and ranking criteria. In order to ensure future applications that better align with the guidelines and criteria, we will be updating the application process for the next program year. Being that the actual CDBG funding allocation has not yet been announced by HUD, actual funding for these recommended programs may change. Addressing the need for more affordable housing continues to be a high priority need in the city's 5-year CDBG plan. As a recipient of CDBG funds, the city is obligated to ensure that fair housing services are available for low to moderate income households. Therefore, an estimated $16,000 is recommended to be set aside to fund a fair housing services provider. These funds are categorized as a public service. $390,000 is proposed to be allocated towards support of affordable rental and transitional housing development. Once the proposed action plan is approved by HUD, the city will release a notification of funding availability to use these funds for acquisition of a site designated for affordable housing to benefit low-income households. Remaining award funds are proposed to be allocated to the city's owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program, which assists low-income residents with energy efficiency and health and safety-related repairs, and increases both the quality of life for the homeowners and quality of housing stock in Roseville. The program currently has approximately $750,000 in state of California home funds available. However, there are a few items that are not eligible with home funds but are allowable with CDBG funds, such as emergency repairs and grants. Staff recommends that the City Council receive public comment on the 2024 Annual Action Plan and adopt a resolution to approve it for submission to HUD. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from the council?
Not for me.
I'll open for public comment. Anyone, public comment? Close public comment. Close the public hearing. Any additional thoughts, questions? If not, we'll have the clerk read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, on item 10.1, the City Council will consider adopting Resolution Number 24-093, approving the 2024 Annual Action Plan, and authorizing the city manager to execute necessary documents and certifications on behalf of the City of Roseville. With that, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Berlusconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvord.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yep.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haldeshell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Next is item 10.2, adoption of the master schedule of user and regulatory fees. I'll open the public hearing and ask for staff's presentation.
Good evening. My name is Janine with the Finance Department, and we are here tonight to ask to adopt the master fee schedule for fiscal '25. Every other year, we do a comprehensive fee study, and we have a consultant here with us today, Terry Madsen with ClearSource, and he's going to go over his findings from the fee study.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to participate in this topic. I know you've had a very full agenda this evening. We have about 20 slides, but I promise to avoid being long-winded. We'll move quickly through them, and then we'll leave any time for council feedback or questions. Next slide, please. So we'll start with just a brief overview of the concept of fees. Next slide. Communities throughout California conduct these types of examinations the same way the city of Roseville does. Generally, cities use their sales tax revenues, property tax revenues to fund services that provide broad community benefit, and they use mechanisms like user and regulatory fees when there is a direct receiver of service. So the purpose of user and regulatory fees is to offset the cost of providing specific services. Next slide. Just for further clarification, we are not dealing with any taxes this evening, any assessments, any utility rates, these things that we experience sort of on a day-to-day basis. Instead, we're dealing with regulatory or discretionary activities. Most commonly, we think of planning fees, building permit fees, special service request type, non-development related fees. Next slide. As the City of Roseville, as part of your annual review of costs of service and revenues, updates your fee schedule annually, and you do a cycle. Most of the time you follow just a very specific cycle where you will, in 1 year, do what we call a cost of service study to support the fees you collect. And in the in-between year, you will do an inflationary adjustment that aligns to regional cost inflation, and then you'll just repeat the pattern. So the fees in place today are the result of an inflationary adjustment, and the fees that the City Council is being asked to consider for fiscal year 24-25 are based on a recently completed cost of service study. Because these are fees, they are adopted by the City Council at the conclusion of a public hearing, but we do have parameters and guidelines and code that we follow that's outlined in the California Constitution and the California Government Code. And the two primary components that we think about are fees should be correlated to cost of service, so we can identify the cost of providing a service, and we don't want to collect fees that exceed that cost. And then secondarily, we think about allocation of costs. So if something is more complex in nature than something that's simple in nature, you would associate a higher cost with the more complex activity. Next slide. we mentioned the types of fees that you're being asked to consider adopting. They are service-based fees. So when we think about service-based fees, the primary driver of cost is labor, either your own in-house labor or your contract service provider labor or a combination of the two. But what we think about is labor, and we think about salaries, benefits, the uniforms we wear, the vehicles we drive, and so forth. And then we think about typical service times. So how long does something take me to conduct when I'm doing some specific review or some specific inspection? And that provides our estimated reasonable cost of service, and we want to adopt fees that do not exceed that estimated reasonable cost of service. Next slide. So those are concepts that are consistent throughout the state. They apply to all communities. Now we'll dive in just very briefly to items that we think are of particular importance to Roseville that we're seeing at the conclusion of this study. Your fee schedule includes hundreds of different fees. Again, this is common because you're trying to develop a fee schedule that can anticipate all of the various scenarios that may walk through your door in a given year. So we have over 400 fees that are in the city's fee schedule. And when we think about it in broad terms, about 86% of those fees are proposed to remain relatively unchanged. They may decrease slightly, they may remain unchanged, or they may increase by 5% or less. We're seeing that consistent pattern of minor changes because of Roseville's sort of proactive recalibration from year to year of fees to align to your cost of service and to reflect the changes in regional costs. There are a handful of fees that are proposed to increase by more than 5%. We'll take some time to walk through those. Several of your fees are proposed for what we call a fee structure modification. When we modify fee structures, we may see some decrease in fees or we may see some increase in fees depending on the scenario, but we have examined those modifications and we feel like the change should be relatively smooth. And then there are 3 new fees proposed, and we'll talk through those. Next slide. So first, let's talk about the new fees and the fees proposed to change by more than 5%. There are 3 fees being added to the schedule that are really intended to enhance fee schedule clarity. They're linked to changes in recent code changes for the Fire Code or Subdivision Map Act or just development regulations. And so we want to be able to document that these are reviews that we conduct and the fee for service. Next slide, please. Here are the fees that are proposed to increase by more than 5%. Earlier this evening, you received a presentation from the electric department that discussed that sort of extreme pressure they're feeling in some facets of their operation, and one of the items they mentioned was labor cost pressures. There are 4 fee adjustments in the electric side that are intended to capture the increased cost of materials, equipment, and personnel, and they're just in excess of that 5% mark that we usually use to inform the City Council, and when we look at them, they're about 14% to 19% type changes. Their fees do target full cost recovery. Additionally, for the last several years, when we come before the City Council, we mention film and photographer permit fees and special event application fees. These are areas where you have historically under-recovered. Staff is aware of it, but rather than attempting to correct that under-recovery sort of overnight, staff has been doing a consistent pattern of annual adjustments in the $15 to $25 range. Because these are lower dollar amounts, the increase is beyond that 5% threshold, so we bring it to your attention. But this is consistent with your historical precedent. Next slide. This is talking the same concept. The first slide dealt with film permitting. This one deals with special event applications. Next slide. If the council adopts the updated schedule of fees and development patterns remain relatively consistent, we see a consistent pattern of permit applications and so forth linked to historical precedent. What we would anticipate is about $550,000 in new revenue. Next slide, please. It's important to note that that would be enhance cost recovery, and the idea is it's recovering costs that the city already incurs. So it's not funding an expanded level of service, it's offsetting existing costs. And the primary idea here is when the council adjusts these fees, you are really trying to avoid degrading what your existing cost recovery levels are. So if we leave fees unchanged in an environment of increasing costs, we don't stay the same in terms of cost recovery, we actually go backwards. So we're trying to stay at similar levels to current levels. Next slide. This is a public hearing, so the council is being asked to adopt the proposed fee schedule for use in fiscal year 24-25, and it should be noted that there is one amendment that you're being asked to consider. Staff is recommending a reduced fee for review of home occupation permit requests in an effort to encourage small business, avoid deterring small businesses. And so that item is an errata item for you. And so, council, next slide, please.
Yeah, you have that up at your desk.
And that went from $101 to $50, is that?
The existing fee is $175 and it's being proposed to reduce to $50.
Thank you.
So you're being asked to adopt the fee schedule as amended effective July 1, 2024. And we mentioned that in the interim year between these types of studies, the council authorizes typically an inflationary adjustment to fees in that interim year. The resolution continues that practice. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm available to receive your feedback.
Council questions?
A quick question. When a project begins, at what point does the fee lock in so they can budget for it in case we do changes later? Is it just at the time it occurs, or is there a point where we submit, here's the cost, and then it won't change on you?
Mike's best for that one.
Good evening, council members. Mike Eisen, Development Services Director. The permit fees or the impact fees are paid at the time of permit issuance, unless it's deferred. But that's the time that it's locked in, is when the permit is issued.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is there a situation in which that permit fee is less than the actual build-out of the project?
Not following the question, Mayor.
If somebody comes in and applies for a fee, but then the actual use is greater than what they applied for. I'm trying to remember the example that I asked you about.
Sorry, I'm still not following the question.
I'm trying to think of the example I asked you about a month ago, where.
I don't remember what I had for breakfast, Mayor.
Okay.
This is late day.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? All right, open for,
I did. When you were saying reduce the fee explain that again for home occupation. So what are you thinking? Like if they're having, like a hairdresser in their garage, or are you thinking of having people living in there taking care of people? What are your?
The home occupation permit, it's a permit issued by the planning department. It's anytime you operate a business out of your home.
Okay.
And there are parameters around it. It can't occupy more than a certain percentage of square footage of the home. You're limited on the amount of visitors you can have, the types of activities you can conduct, and things like that. We typically use a zoning clearance process, and that has historically been about $175, well, it goes up every year, but $175. We want to try to, as Terry said, remove or reduce the barrier to a small business obtaining a home occupation permit. We want to encourage people to obtain the home occupation permits. We know that they're operating, and we can make sure that they're operating within the parameters established in the home occupation ordinance. So we're trying to make it easier for small businesses, is the rationale.
I understand that when you say small businesses, but when you're saying small business in your home, then it kind of gets to be a little bit different.
So let me give you an example. Met a new family that moved to Roseville. He works for Corning Optical. He would apply for, he works out of his home until he goes and travels to where he needs to go, but he would apply for a home occupancy I'm sorry, yeah.
Well,
this permit.
if it's someone that just works from home, they work for a corporation, but they're working from home, they wouldn't need a home occupation permit. But if their principal place of business is their home,
Yeah, that's.
if their business license is registered to their home, that's when they would need a home occupation permit.
I was just surprised that you're looking to do that, so that was.
Well, I remember a couple months back, someone had emailed me about they sell at a craft fair. And they thought that, the cost recovery for them selling crafts, that they needed to have this home occupancy or permit, it would have made it not worth it for her. So I think the really micro, small, it would count for all businesses, but in that case, it just didn't make sense for, that would discourage her from doing that.
It's a situation that led us to taking a harder look at this.
There's another example, though, that we do this, and it's the water heaters, right? We're not full recovery on water heaters because we want people to pull permits for us to inspect their water heaters for safety. So that's we know we subsidize that fee, but it's in order to get people to comply. This is very similar.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Just follow up on that question, sorry. Are we going to promote this? Because that sounds like we just dropped it quite a bit significantly. Are we going to tell the community about that Roseville's trying to encourage more home occupancy by lowering our fees?
I would expect we would, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
just thought I'd ask.
Looks like we did that right here tonight,
Right.
didn't we? Everybody's watching. Everybody's out there watching us.
We do post the fee schedule on our website
Oh, yeah.
as of July 1st.
It has to be sort of active communication, too. Right. Any other questions before I open it to the public? Okay, any public comment? Close public comment, close public hearing. If there are no additional questions or comments regarding the presentation, I'll ask the clerk to read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, on item 10.2, the City Council will consider adopting resolution number 24095, approving a master schedule of user and regulatory fees effective July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. With that, may I please have a motion to approve?
Moved.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Alvord.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haudashelt.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right, 10.3, 2024 weed abatement public hearing. I'll open the public hearing and ask Steph to make the presentation. Division Fire Chief Michael Bradley, and yeah, a familiar face, so.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. I'm Michael Bradley. I'm Division Chief with the Fire Department. Tonight I am with
Eric Dexter, Parks and Open Space Superintendent.
We'll keep this brief. In partnership with Parks, Recs, and Libraries, we identify vacant parcels, notify property owners to abate their weeds, all with an end goal by July 1st. Taking into account the weather, rainfall, and seasonal dying of seasonal grasses, we prioritize fire breaks, city-owned parcels, and private vacant parcels. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. It's that time of year again. Our four-legged employees are back, the goats. They just started this past week doing vegetation management in our open space behind Lincoln Estates Park. And over the next few weeks, we'll have 4 additional herds throughout the city. They help with the vegetation management in all our open spaces. The goats will be here, not only from here, obviously, all the way through October to reduce that vegetation and thatch management. If you want to go see them, you can check out the city website. Goat Tracker is the place to go to do that. It's not live just yet. It's being updated as they just arrived. So soon that'll be updated and you can check that out. In addition, our city staff and our contractors are hard at work installing 30-foot fire breaks along our open space areas throughout the city to be in compliance with the July 1st deadline. We have a great partnership with the fire department and we look forward to continuing that for years to come. Back to you, Mike.
And with that, we'll take any questions.
Oh, I love this presentation.
Yeah, this is
Any
great.
questions? All right, I'm going to open it up to public comment. I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to close the public hearing. Unless there's additional questions or comments about the presentation, I'll ask the clerk to read the motion and put these goats to work, right?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that, on item 10.3, the City Council will consider adopting Resolution Number 24092, ordering the destruction of or removal of all weeds, dirt, rubbish, and/or rank growth within the City of Roseville, and overruling any and all objections thereto. With that, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Albert.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Hildeshout.
Yes,
motion
thank you
passes.
very much for a very concise presentation. 10.4, Shea Roseville Apartments fee deferral. I'll open the public hearing. Melissa Aguiano and Gina McCall, you are on the clock. Let's see if you can beat the previous presentation.
This might be your favorite
Melissa,
presentation.
the time to beat from fire is 3 minutes, 47 seconds.
Start the stopwatch. Good evening, Mayor Hildeshout, members of the City Council. Melissa Anguiano, your city's Economic Development Director. We have one last quick item for your consideration tonight, and it's a fee deferral request for the Shea Roseville Apartments. Gina McCall, Economic Development Analyst, will give a quick presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, Gina McCall, City of Roseville Economic Development Department. The city offers a fee deferral program through the Economic Development Department as an incentive to facilitate new development. This is especially important for projects that may not otherwise be financially feasible, such as affordable housing projects that often receive financing structures through a variety of sources. So for background, the Shea Roseville Apartments project will be located in the north central Roseville specific plan area on Gibson Drive, adjacent to Highway 65 and the Shea Business Center and the Ascent at Galleria Apartments. The apartment project will include 356 units, 352 of which will be affordable units, and the remaining will be for on-site managers. The projects have already received planning entitlements and have been submitted for building permits. Additionally, earlier tonight, the Affordable Rental Housing Agreement was approved. So tonight's request is not related to the project design. It's just considering the timing of payment of fees. So procedurally, the fee deferral request was submitted to the city by the developers of the Shea Roseville Apartments. The request would allow payment of certain city-controlled impact fees to be deferred to building permit occupancy, whereas typically these fees would be collected upfront at building permit issuance, as you just heard. And the request was reviewed by the various city departments, and the listed fees on this slide were being recommended to be deferred. Deferral of these fees was determined to have no impact to the city budget. The fee deferral totals approximately $5.19 million spread over 2 phases, as detailed in your report. The city does charge interest on the deferral and administrative fees for processing the request, so there will be no financial loss to the city from the fee deferral. Okay, so the Roseville Municipal Code and Government Code Section 53083 requires all fee deferrals over $100,000 to be approved via a public hearing, so that is why you're here tonight. This request is routine in nature. Staff is recommending that the City Council adopt the resolution approving the fee deferral for the Shea Roseville Apartments project for the previously stated impact fees plus interest until final building permit building occupancy. That concludes my presentation.
Great. We'll ask if the council has any questions. All right. Open it for public comment. Oh, here we go. The entire 3 minutes.
No,
Okay.
I don't want to screw up Gina's record here. Jeff Melrose, Shea Properties, we're the developer of the project. I'll save the pitch, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the status of the project, what's going on, what's not going on. I'm here at your beck and call, and we appreciate staff and their help in getting this project pushed ahead. It's literally taken a village to build a village. So I think someone said there were 1,300 city employees. I think 1,200 have probably touched this project at one point or another. So we're just happy to be here and pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna speak for the council and thank you for your investment in the city. Any other public comment? Close public comment, close the public hearing, inquire if the council has any additional questions or comments. Yesterday, a few of us were at a groundbreaking for another affordable housing project, and the comment there was about the partnership that took place and the importance of affordable housing projects like this project, like the project we were at, which was, I think, 284 affordable units to prevent homelessness, right? So we very much appreciate what you're doing, and I know you're getting state funding the first round, or wasn't easy, but you persisted. So ask the clerk to read the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On item 10.4, the City Council will consider adopting Resolution Number 24-109, approving fee deferrals for the Shea Roseville Apartment Project. With that, may I please have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor with a second. We'll start a roll call with Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
Yes.
Councilmember Albert.
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Rakucci.
Yes.
And Mayor Haudashelt.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right, we've come to the point in the evening where we will take public comment, second round of public comment on non-agenda items. Going once, going twice. Ask the city manager if he has anything further.
No further reports, Mayor. Thank you.
City attorney?
I do not, thank you.
I'll invite the council members to report on any committee activity. I'll start with Councilman Albert.
All right, so I mentioned it before, but now we can officially say the WAPMA, the Western Placer Waste Management Authority, is going completely independent. We have hired a new executive director. His name is Scott Schultz. He'll start, I think, towards the end of June. I forget the exact date, but this summer. And we appreciate him coming. It'll be a nice separation for us. Instead of it being more county control, it'll be more controlled by the member agencies. I got to participate in 2 entrepreneurial pitch contests. One of them was for WAPMA Circular Economy. There was 2 organizations. We awarded a total of $25,000, $20,000 to one and $5,000 to the other, to be able to use our waste stream to convert it into building materials. Both of them. One took cardboard and paper, and the other took plastics. So we thought that was kind of interesting. We hope they're very successful and end up actually coming out to WAPMA and taking diverting some of our waste stream and at some point. The other one was the Roseville Rising High School cohort. This is the second cohort, and we had the judging last night, and that was kind of fun listening to several teams give their pitches, some very entrepreneurial high school students, and we do hope that at some point one of them or more will be successful and actually get some businesses started in Roseville. It's just a neat feel, watch the excitement of these kids. Several of us participated, or some of us participated in the high school voter outreach program at some of the high schools. We got to take questions from the high schoolers. I was on the nonpartisan elected part, but they had Republican and Democrat representatives just so the kids can ask questions and get to know about the voting process and hopefully get them registered and get them out voting, because they're a very big voice that we don't hear from a whole lot. And then the last thing I was going to mention is we got to tour an interesting facility, and some other people may talk about it, just be brief. It's Sunrose Apartments. It's a county project that Amy is running, and they actually take homeless off the street and go through a fairly strict vetting process, and they've got some pretty strict rules, but they bring them into a home, and it has a pretty good success rate of restoring people, so we're excited that something like that's happening in our city. That's it.
Great, thanks, Councilman. Vice Mayor Bernasconi.
And I would just, to add to your comment about Sunrose, that one of the differentiators between this type of housing complex and something else is that 30% of their income goes to living there. And so they absolutely have some skin in the game, and they receive services, and they have about 30 or so occupants now, or residents that are looking to move over to the new side in the next couple weeks when it's ready. Just a few things quickly, because we did not have our second meeting in April. It's been a little while. I served as a panelist for the Greater Sacramento Economic Council that was held here in Roseville regarding Bosch's location to the city of Roseville and our trip back to Germany and everything that we learned there. Tracy and I had our law and regulation meeting at the end of April. Couple ribbon cuttings. The bash is tomorrow night for the Roseville Chamber for their young professionals, so I will be there. I think that's it for tonight.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Councilwoman Rakucci?
A few things. I know there's been a lot of different activities, and all of us have been doing different things. There's just been a lot of things going on. I'm going to talk about some of the organizations that I'm on the committees with. Today I was on my NACWA meeting, which is Northern California Water Association, and we voted to have North Yuba Water District be one of our board members, so they're on board. We've got a report from our legislative person of where some of the local state bills are, and it was real interesting because a lot of bills are being made, but it's going through a process now of which ones are going to be held back and not be even heard yet, and so this is what's kind of going on now. So for them to be able to say exactly which ones are happening. They can't, then not necessarily they can tell you if it looks like a good bill or a bad bill, but where it's at, it's kind of iffy. I also belong to Northern California Power Association, and a couple things on there that was kind of exciting for them. In our geothermal plant, which is close to Healdsburg, it had a malfunction of one of its, I want to say if it's like a rotor, but it's really not supposed to have that problem at this age. It's supposed to have been if it was older. So make a long story short, after periods of time, they brought it through their insurance agent on this, and they just were awarded a little over $6 million for the insurance cost on this, which all these rotors and any of these parts are all expensive. And so to be able to get this and not have to pay for it, although you know what happens with your insurance, then you have to see if your insurance rates will go up. But this was a tremendous good thing for NCPA and also the members that participants in it, and Roseville is one of them. Also with NCPA, California Energy Commission gave a grant for $7 million for the Lodi Energy Center. We're not a part of that, but that's one of our team members, and that's really good for them. They're also working on a project with, our mayor mentioned, asked a question about hydrogen, so they've been doing studies on a high level of green hydrogen. And so those are two things that happened that are really nice. Their next meeting is going to be in Santa Clara. We try to go to where all the members reside and learn a little bit more about the city. So my next month's meeting will be there. I think one other thing I wanted to mention was many of us went to Cap, and I was on the water team, water resource team, and it was real interesting when you hear Electric and Water talking about PFAS and where that is, and we were going. I'm just going to show. Gave all the council kind of a little diagram with 5 little pictures on it, and one of our members made this, but these are the subjects. It's all to do with water, but water has many different parts, and they work together. And one of them is when we were back there, we were talking with different, it could be congressmen, it could be different regulatory agencies about healthy rivers and Sacramento Regional Water Bank and our water bank and our water bank. So that was really interesting. And many of the council members were doing very similar things, but on different topics. And this one was, this is my last one. This was kind of fun and different. it's actually called, I think, Mosquito Awareness Month. And at the Veterans Park here in Roseville, they had a demonstration of drones and using drones and putting repellents on different areas for mosquitoes, and like a 55-pound drone and smaller ones. I'd never been up close to anything like that, except maybe where you see kids that have bought one at Costco or something, and it's a little one and they're playing with it. These were really high tech, and what I got out of it is that when you have a drone in this work, they can really go to an area, see what size of maybe some stagnant water is. They can even take samples of it. And I always thought about mosquitoes that they always spray. Well, they don't always spray. They actually put granules in polluted water that go and attack the larvae. So there's a way of, it's very sophisticated way of dealing with mosquitoes. And so, you know, sometimes we take mosquitoes lightly, you know, they bite and they're nasty, but there are some major diseases, I think it's West Nile and Zika virus that they've only had, I think, like one case last year, and I can't remember which one, but it's just that there's opportunities now with the drones that they even fly over, like forested areas with maybe poison oak. They don't have to walk people through this. This drone goes to the other side and checks things out, so that real people can actually talk to other real people about mosquitoes or questions they have in their neighborhood. And if people want to know when they're looking or what they might spray or what's the organization doing, you can get on their site and be notified, and they can call you and let you know what's going on. So, yeah, I got more of a mosquito awareness and drone intelligence. So it's, you know, it was different, but it was pretty good. Okay, I'm done. No more drones. No more drones. No more drones.
All right. Checked off a lot on my list because it was already covered, so we won't repeat all of that. I, like several of my other council members, went back to D.C. cap to cap. I served on the Public Safety Committee along with our police chief, members of our police and fire department, and other city staff. We focused on increasing providing service on mental health issues for our first responders, Prop 47, and collaborating with our legislative partners on projects and initiatives that help keep our community safe and foster a more productive and safe business climate here in Roseville and within our region. Vice Mayor Bernasconi mentioned Law and Reg already. I wanted to also mention I serve on the RPAL board, and they had their golf tournament at Topgolf. I believe it was yesterday. And congratulations to Justin Caparuso and his team for winning that. Here he's gunning for you on Friday at the mayor's.
I was on his team, but I had to leave.
I had to leave. Yeah, he said
he won because my handicap.
He has unfinished. Yeah, he said he won because you left.
My handicap was really low.
Yeah,
so I won.
And just a side note, I'll mention this a few more times before in the next coming meetings, but the Roseville Police Athletic League is having a community barbecue on May 25th at the RPAL gym. I encourage everybody to stop by. There's more information on the website. Take a tour of the new gym, meet some of our fine police officers, learn what RPAL does, and see some of the amazing work that our current Leadership Roseville team has done to beautify that gymnasium. And then lastly, I wanted to say a special thank you to our city staff who worked really hard over the last week and a half to plant fresh flowers out here on our town square. It looks really, really nice and will probably last until the first round of children come through in the play area. In the water feature, but right now it's very colorful and looks nice. So I encourage you to come out and spend some time on the square. It's very nice. And then tonight in public comment, there was two teenagers that spoke about something on this THC infused, and I don't know if everybody else on the dais got this, but they came and passed a few things around. Is this something that we could have look further into, because I mean, it brings back a memory. Like I say, the whole vaping discussion that led to the vaping ordinance started from a public comment. You know, we got a discussion going amongst all of us, and that spun into, things that we took action on. Obviously, I don't want to draw any parallels. This was just brought up tonight, so I don't know much about it. But it does cause me concern. One of the things that were mentioned, especially, we want to protect our children and our teenagers, and she did mention that this was something that she was concerned about. Actually, two of them mentioned she was concerned about it. So whatever process we need to do, or at least get a discussion going, I'd like to look into that a little bit, because this is concerning to me. Just this picture is concerning, especially, there's some elements here that I think we need more information on. So just wanted to throw it out there. And that is all of my updates. I'll kick it back to you, Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll pick up on that comment you just made. In our consent calendar tonight was our legislative platform. The landscape is changing, and changing rapidly with respect to not only cannabis. Last Friday, April 26th, the governor specifically addressed this issue that the two high school students brought today with respect to the intoxicating hemp beverages that are available and then can be, through some creative science, changed into a cannabis product. And Councilman Albert, it's much like you were on the leading edge back in 2018 on this whole flavored tobacco, menthol vaping thing. Now, there's been legislation has been passed on that. There's been it was challenged. The voters of the state said we should look at that. Yesterday, I think it was, the DEA put forth a proposal on decriminalizing marijuana, moving it from a class 1 to a class 3, which is pretty common. It's testosterone and steroid type thing. So the landscape's changing. The legislature is always looking at this. There's 22 states attorney generals that are right now asking Congress to close a loophole, which is what this is about, in the Farm Bill, because I'm not a scientist, but I hang around a bunch of them, and the THC has different variations, and unwittingly in the Farm Bill, they allowed a product or a THC product that can be converted to an intoxicating cannabis. So I would join you, Councilman Mendoza, in wanting to see what we might be able to do in the way of an ordinance, look at other jurisdictions and see what they have done, how they fund outreach and education. I think we have probably 20 vape and smoke shops in the city of Roseville, and I'm not sure what goes on behind those locked doors and heavily fortified institutions, but I think they get out into the community.
Yep.
It's my understanding that delivery can be, there can be delivery from into the city of Roseville, and my understanding that there could be warehousing. So I do think, it's in our legislative platform on page 6 that we will look at ways that we can address, sale and distribution of cannabinoids and cannabis. So I would support what you just mentioned, and ask the council to also support Councilman Mendoza's request. With that, is that enough direction?
No.
No, you
So what I would ask is the majority of the council open to exploring this? And then I'd have to drill down a little bit without violating the Brown Act, because it's not on the agenda, but just to understand the questions. One that I heard tonight from the speakers was hemp in products, whether it be cookies, sodas, laced, right, hemp-laced products. And so...
And oil.
And oil, looking into the regulation and ability to regulate that. And then the other was the retail sale of cannabis, which is something that we have spoke about at the council level over the years and has not been supported up till now, right? And so that's one of the things that absolutely I would want to bring back and have a policy discussion if that's the will of the council.
Carmen, if I may, do we have speaker cards with their information that they could be reached out to if you need clarification, from what they were trying to say? Because they only had 3 minutes, so maybe, and I know that 2 of them kind of overlapped on similar topics.
Yes, we have the contact info.
Well, I think, yeah, and Councilman Alvarado, I was trying to remember that group that came out of the county that sort of mapped where,
The concept of the vaping, we decided to hold off and see what the state did about it.
Right.
Tonight, my interpretation of the comments, they brought up an issue, but then converted it to allowing controlled substances to be sold in the city and setting up a policy. At this point, I'm not interested in talking about that. And I'm kind of curious to see what's going to happen at the state and federal level before we make a decision. I think that might be made for us, possibly.
I'd like to just find out what's happening right now in Roseville. Some of the pictures and just kind of an update where we're at.
I mean, to the city manager's point, I guess a discussion has been had in prior councils, obviously prior to me sitting on this council, and the sale and the marijuana part. Even if we don't get into the weeds on, with respect to what Councilman Albert is saying, I'd just kind of like to know high level, what's going on, because this kind of a picture, and they're obviously targeting to a specific younger market that it does concern me.
Well, it's a local control issue too.
Right.
So. You have your direction?
I do. Thank you.
All right, great. And I'm going to pick up on that. Councilman Albert and I were at Wood Creek, and it really is one of the topics I talked about was our partnership with the county on the homelessness issue. And communicating and doing outreach is important because one of the questions I got is, well, you've been meeting for 3 years, what'd you do? And I had an opportunity to go back and say, let me apologize, that I wasn't clear on what we did and provide that opportunity to do that. So it's really good, and it's part of our strategic plan that we do this outreach in a safe and healthy community to a diverse audience, including younger audiences. So I think that's right in line with what Councilmember Mendoza is talking about. Cap to cap, I was on the Transportation Committee. And also on the Food and Ag Committee. We had, one day I had 3 different meetings on the same day on 3 different topics with Congressman Kiley, who was appointed to, he's the newest member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and is very much in his statement, about his appointment, highlighted I-80 and Highway 65. So it's good to have, and then as we heard earlier tonight, Congressman Kiley was instrumental in us getting the $3.2 million for Blue Oak, so it's good to have a friend in Congress. A lot of things that we've attended together, the dedication of Solaire Park this past Saturday. May is Bike Month. I have some pretty cool socks that I got from SACOG. Saturday was Bike Fest right here in Vernon Town Square, and it was well attended. I was told, I got there after the Solaire Park dedication, but I'm told it was the best attended one ever. So Bike Fest is May month. I have SACOG Transportation Committee tomorrow. I had PCTPA last week. Councilman Albert and Vice Mayor Bernasconi talked about Sunrose Apartments, which, 50% of those folks are seniors. There's veterans there. I won't go into that. Friday night was the city awards over at Bridgeway Church, recognizing the most outstanding of our excellent police and firefighters. And then this Friday, what's going on this Friday, Ms. Geller? The Mayor's Cup. Yep, the Mayor's Cup will be at Wood Creek Golf Course, and this year the theme is fan of the game, I'm just laying it out there right now that I will be winning the best dressed individual. I don't know about our foursome, but I will be. But in all seriousness, this is like the Tommy dinner the other night, which many of us served at, right? This is one of those great things about the city of Roseville where we support those who can't always afford our programming, and the Mayor's Cup goes to helping ensure there's, I'll use the word equity, and for our youth in participating in our various parks and our recreational programs. So I've been practicing on my swing. It's pretty good. I'm going to go home and watch some more videos. It's going to be pretty good, and I will be winning the best costume contest on Friday. And with that, I think we are adjourned to the May 15th meeting, unless there's anything else. And thank you, everybody. This was a really packed meeting, so I appreciate it.
All right.